Okay, so good evening again. Welcome to our 2024 SFLA volunteer training. My name is John Hearing. I think I know a lot of you guys. I know a few of you may are new members here. Hopefully you had a few minutes there to kind of introduce yourself to some of the other folks and start to get to know some of the other people. We're going to go through this relatively quickly tonight. But at the same time, we want you to stop and ask questions. This is what we're going to cover. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, each one of these, but you'll see we're going to go through a lot of the stuff you're going to need to be an effective volunteer for the Forest Service, which is really what this training is all about. So again, stop us if you got questions, and we will record this, and so it'll be up there on Zoom, up on Google Google Drive if you want to read it, watch it again. So just a real quick part about SFLA. We were founded in 2021. Our purpose is to preserve fire lookouts as living, operating fire lookouts. We're not into rentals, and we're not into just preserving them as dusty old cabins in the woods, but really to keep them in operation, because we think there's value there. We're currently at about 100 members. We lose a few every year, and we'll gain new ones, and so that's really important to us. This is a little bit about what we did last year: 3,200 hours of volunteer service. 86 operating days at Suntop, 3,500 visitors up there, including 242 in one day, which was pretty amazing. So we reported 4 fires. We re-roofed Granite Mountain Lookout. One of the people that's on the phone here is Lawrence Curacina, and he was the honcho on that one. Over 5 days, re-roofed that lookout, and that looks awesome. We helped construct the new ADA deck and ramp at Suntop, and we're going to basically try to finish that up and do that connection up this year. We put people out for National Trails Day. By the way, that's coming up this Saturday, and you'll hear me talk about that when we get to the end. And, we also did a lot of other volunteer work for the Forest Service, trail patrols, volunteering the front desk. So we do a lot of things, not just staff fire lookouts. Who are the members? Well, basically anybody that wants to help preserve fire lookouts. That's really who we invite to be members. You have to be at least 15 years old. If you're not 15, you have to be accompanied by an 18-year-old or older to be on lookout duty. So that's kind of the general rule. But we certainly invite anybody and everybody to join the association. And if you have friends that want to join, we certainly would encourage them to think about joining the association. So what's our primary duties as volunteers? Well, we are there to represent the Forest Service. We are their eyes and ears in the forest. On many days, we will find that we basically have volunteers are the only people that are out in the national forest. There are some days that's the case. The people staffing the lookouts may be the only people out there. You may be the only presence there is for the Forest Service out there in the Snoqualmie Ranger District. So that's really important. Our primary purpose, of course, is to preserve, maintain, and operate the fire lookouts on behalf of the Forest Service. That's kind of a reminder: the Forest Service owns these lookouts. We're simply there helping them to operate them, and patrol trails. Those are the two major things we do. We do a lot of other stuff. I'd like to highlight one second to the bottom. That's we are asked to report and respond to emergencies and injuries if we're requested and qualified. This is where that presence thing becomes really important. In a lot of cases, we may be the only person out on these mountain roads or on these trails. And so having the ability to go out there and respond, having the gear to respond, we'll talk a little bit about that too, is hugely important. So if you're qualified. What are the expectations? What are some expectations the Forest Service and, of course, SFLA has for you as volunteers? Well, we want you to be on alert. Be watchful, be kind of looking and keeping your eyes and ears open and paying attention to things you think the Forest Service might want to know about. Everything from emergencies to, gee, that road looks kind of like it's starting to crumble away. So we need you to be on time. A lot of people take shifts in the lookouts, and we really need you to be on time and in person and ready to serve when your shift comes up. If you have to cancel, we need you to tell us about that cancellation at least 24 hours in advance. And if you're canceling at the last minute, we ask you to have a good reason. Hey, I have to work. That's okay. Certainly if you're sick, that's absolutely okay. I've got new out-of-town guests coming in. Yeah, we're going to kind of think about that one a little bit. So we want you to behave and dress professionally. You represent the Forest Service. Wear your SFLA shirt. I'm wearing mine right here. A couple others have theirs on too tonight. I see Erica Olson's got hers on. Yep. or a Forest Service shirt if you have one. And we offer U.S. Forest Service volunteer hats. There's always a stack of volunteer hats there in the lookout box, in the gazebo box in Enumclaw. And if you don't have one, grab one. Let us know you're grabbing one so we can kind of keep track of who's got who's got the hats. We ask you to be wearing reasonable looking outdoor attire. Hiking pants, jeans, hiking shorts are okay. Daisy Dukes, ripped jeans, stuff like that is not okay. By the way, most of the things you're seeing here are being mentioned because we've had experience with them. So that's kind of why we bring them up, just to kind of point them out. We ask you to interact attentively and respectfully of visitors. You're going to see a lot of people out there. And we really want you to present that example as being representing the Forest Service out there. So, at the same time, obeying the Forest Service rules is pretty important. And we really particularly want you to be fire safe. So, there are some really important limitations that we need you to remember. We are the friendly face of the Forest Service. We are not forest protection officers. We are not law enforcement officers. We do not enforce laws. We don't give tickets. We don't threaten people. We don't do anything like that. We want to avoid conflicts and we want to advise. We do not criticize. We don't complain. We don't threaten. Nothing like that is acceptable for us as Forest Service volunteers. We're simply out there. I sometimes tell people we're the friendly Smokey Bears out there. And our job is to basically tell people, hey, paying attention to this. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Come on. There we go. There are some federal rules we have to follow. Sorry, guys, but there are no firearms allowed in the lookouts or while you're wearing an SFLA t-shirt. That's a federal rule. If you want to contest that, you can argue with the bosses. That's their rules. No alcohol or drugs while you're on duty. No smoking in the lookout of anything. I don't care if it's legal in the state of Washington or not. We don't do it inside the lookouts. No dogs with the on duty inside the lookout unless it's a registered service dog and you can provide us with the paperwork. This has to do with allergies, by the way. We've had dogs come up and they jump up on the beds. And now they're laying down on the bed that somebody's going to sleep in. People don't like that. So, and there's some good practices we follow. We don't allow any liquid fuels inside the lookouts, with the exception of the kerosene heater. The reason for this is these are really old buildings. Suntop is 90 years old. Kelly Butte is, 70 years old. These are really old buildings, and frankly, they are just, one spark or one mistake away from a fire. And so we just taking extra precautions there. We don't want any liquid fuels. We don't want any open flames, things like that. So leave your white gas lantern or your candles at home and use batteries or things like that. So propane lanterns are okay. And of course, no dogs inside the lookout. You are allowed to have guests. You can have one non-SFLA guest stay with you. They have to be 12 years old or older. But the big reminder here is your guests have to follow the rules. The rules is outlined, and we really want you to take time to explain them to this guest, such as, the things that would basically be questionable behavior for you kind of apply to them. Sunbathing with your shirt off outside the lookout, not greeting the visitors when the SFLA members out conducting duties, sleeping during the day when visitors are trying to come in, bringing liquor up to the lookout during the shift, carrying firearms. These are all things we've seen, and we just want you to remind your guests these are things we don't want them doing. So, and you are responsible for your guests' behavior. There are some risks. All of these are outlined in the appendix of the handbook, the volunteer appendix of the handbook. And if you get a chance to go back and look at that, we certainly would like you to look through those. These are some of the risks that you may encounter. We want to talk about each one of these. The first one's pretty basic. If you're not feeling well, don't go on duty. Don't go up and say, I'll feel better if I go up to a lookout. That's not a good idea. Okay. Yeah. Check your temperature before you're departing home. And if you have a temperature, don't go on duty. Wipe the radios or other equipment before in use or being put away. If you start to get sick while you're up on lookout duty, go home. Call us and say, hey, I'm up chucking. It's time for me to go home. Yes, you're right. It's time for you to go home. Please just take it with you and let us know when you're feeling better. wipe down the radios, other equipment before you use them and being put away. Because if you think about it, you're holding this radio, and I'm holding this part of the radio that somebody's mouth has been right next to, up next to my mouth. I probably want to make sure that that's not got microbes all over it. So just thinking about it. We want to be careful when we're driving on these roads. All the roads leading to the lookouts and going to most of the trailheads are pretty narrow. They're basically gravel roads. These are forest roads. The speed limit on the gravel roads is generally 25 miles an hour, unless it's posted as being less. We want you to keep your speed down, slow down when you approach corners, be cautious driving on these roads. A lot of people will hot rod, especially coming downhill, and they'll just be going 1,000 miles an hour, and you'll see them flying off into the woods. So we don't want to do that. Injuries, doing tripping and falls. People trip, people fall. We want to be careful. When you're hiking to it around the lookouts, take it easy. Use hiking poles if you need to. Don't be afraid to do that. I am not afraid to use hiking poles anymore. They're kind of save my knees. Be careful walking around the lookouts. There's lots of rocks, roots, unstable ground. Be careful going up and down into lookouts. Most of the lookout stairs do not have railings. And so, if you don't have a railing there, basically hang on to something, hang on to the steps if you have to. You may have to actually go up on all fours. So, and don't leave stuff sitting on the stairs. That's an absolute guaranteed good way to trip and fall. Spoken from experience, just letting you know that's kind of a bad practice. Okay. Bees or yellow jackets. If you see a hole in the trail, don't step on it. And around here, if you see a hole in the trail, I can almost guarantee you, if it's not a yellow jacket nest, they're thinking about it. So that's a not a dead giveaway. If you have a known allergy to stings, then you need to get out of there if you've been stung and go seek medical attention. We do have sting wipes and swabs inside the first aid kits up at the lookouts. If you start having difficulty breathing or swallowing, call Puget Sound Dispatch for emergency help, or if you need, call 911 for a medical emergency. Okay. Ticks, we do have ticks, particularly up at Kelly Butte. Any place you got goats, you're going to have ticks. I use pyrethrin. I spray it on my pants. It basically keeps the ticks from basically grabbing onto your pants. At the same time, you still want to do a tick check when you get back to the trailhead, or when you get up to the lookout, do a quick tick check and just make sure you don't have somebody that's riding on you. If you do happen to get a tick bite, take that tick and put it in a plastic baggie, a little Ziploc bag, and take it with you to your doctor and let your doctor basically check it out to see and make sure if it's got something in there that they're going to need to treat you for, like Rocky Mountain spotted fever or Lyme or something like that. So, in case of fire, the first thing I'd tell you is, if there's a real major fire coming, Puget Sound's not going to ask you to stay there. Matter of fact, they're going to tell you to get out, and they'll basically order you to evacuate. Your starting point, though, is listen to what Puget Sound tells you. They're going to basically tell you what's your instructions. If you have to evacuate, secure the lookout, take any flammables out of the lookout, like the kerosene heater, etc., the propane stoves, and just get them away from the lookout. If time permits, close the doors and the windows. You probably can't close the shutters because they're not really closable. And then evacuate the lookout. If you can't evacuate, Puget Sound will send a helicopter to come get you. Trust me, we're not going to leave you up there. Sunburn, a lot of these, all these lookouts are above 5,000 feet. Much of the district is above 5,000 feet. And at those altitudes, you can be sunburned even through the clouds. Trust me, this light-haired Northern European thing, I kind of burn pretty easily. So use sunscreen. Wildlife, we do have wildlife at the lookouts. We don't generally have bears, things like that, but we do have lots of squirrels and mice and things like that. And we want to make sure we keep them out. The best way to do that is basically secure your food. Dispose of the garbage property. We have garbage cans now, buckets with lids that you can put your garbage into, and we have buckets you can put your food into. So that's what we ask you to store your food is inside these closed containers, and that will basically protect you from most of the critters getting at. So, hunters, we do have hunting and shooting in the forest. Be aware of this going on. A lot of times the sound travels much further than you might think. So don't just rely on the sound of shots, basically rely on seeing it. If you see, for example, somebody standing down there on the landing down near the trailhead at Kelly Butte and they're shooting there, that's probably not a great place for people to be shooting. And that's when you basically let Puget Sound Dispatch know about it. If they're at the 70 Road shooting pit, they're allowed to shoot there. They're actually allowed to shoot anywhere in the forest that's not posted. They can't. And so just kind of keep your eyes on it. So, keep aware of what's going on. Lightning. You get lightning up. These are fire lookouts. Guess what? They get lightning up there, and it's a pretty exhilarating circumstance. If you've ever ridden through a lightning storm up there at the lookout, it's pretty exciting. If the storm is a ways away, like a mile plus, then you can kind of watch it. You'll see it kind of advancing, and you'll tell whether it's coming towards a lookout or not. When it's that far away, you really want to avoid using the radio. And if you do, stand or sit on the insulated platform. And that's kind of the insulated platform is a wooden platform that's got glass insulator feet on it. So you can sit on the top of that. Extinguish any lanterns, turn the gas hose off, things like that. If the storm is less than a mile away, and this is that old trick of, you see the flash and they count to yourself 1 potato, 2 potato. Well, if that storm is less than a mile away, you're only going to get to 1 potato, 2 potato. And that means that storm's pretty close. You want to stay inside the lookout. You want to stand in the middle on top of that insulated platform. You want to take the radio and turn it off and set it away from you and basically stay on that insulated platform until the storm's passed. If you're outside, go get in your vehicle if you can. That's the second safest place is inside that vehicle. If you're on the trail, you want to find a low spot away from trees. You want to take all the metal off your body. Glasses, your backpack that's got a carbon composite frame, the radio, your keys, and set them far away from your body. And then you want to squat. You want to squat down on 2 feet as low as possible and wait till the storm passes. You don't want to do this, by the way, next to trees. You're going to basically be out in the open, but you're safer doing that than you are standing up or being underneath the tree. High winds. These are lookouts. They get a lot of high winds. When the winds are 15 or 20 miles an hour, we want to avoid dead or sick trees. We want to kind of stay away from them. We don't really have that much of a problem at Suntop. We do have a little bit of that up at Kelly Butte on the way out, but nothing huge. This is more really related to trail patrol. If you're at the lookout and you're getting high winds, make sure that everything's out of the catwalk is secured or removed. Sometimes people put out a doggy dish and things like that. Put those, move that inside so it doesn't just get picked up by wind. Close the windows, avoid entering and leaving. Make sure you close that door tight. Don't try to lower the shutters. The shutters have to be screwed in place and you won't have the tools to do it. I guarantee you. It's certain they're a special type of screw. So we leave the shutters up on their stanchions and they are far safer that way than if they're just loose. If they're just flapping in the wind, basically the shutters will just be grabbed by the wind and torn off, and then we'll have to go get them, haul them back up to the lookout. As a matter of fact, Lawrence, I think you and I had to do that once or twice, didn't we? You got a smile on your face. Yeah. Okay. In the back of the SFLA Volunteer Handbook is a risk analysis worksheet talking about lookout duty. And I would encourage you on your own to take a few minutes, read through that, make sure you understand it, make sure you're kind of internalize if there's this sort of risk, this is how do I avoid it? And if it happens, what do I do? So, quick summary of this first section. What's your primary job? Represent the Forest Service to the public. You are the friendly face of the Forest Service. You're not law enforcement. You're not there to basically jack people up because of the rules. You're there to tell people, these are things that we need to do differently. We want to be careful driving to duty, hiking, using stoves, lightning, high winds. We want to be alert, on time, in uniform, and be responsible for our guests. And by the way, not following the rules can get removed from the program. Okay, that's the last bad thing we'll say to you guys. Okay, questions about this first section? Okay. I must be doing okay. Good deal. All right. Let me go ahead and we're not going to take a 5-minute break yet. We'll take one when we hit the hour point. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead, and I saw we got one more person here. Who came in? Oh, Rick Rodriguez. There you go. Hey, Rick. Okay. No questions. I must be doing okay then. All right. Cool. All right. Somebody got a question? Oh, Aaron. Okay, got another person joining us, and I'll have to catch her up at the end. Okay. So let's talk about the basics. We do two major things, and actually three major things we do, two primary things, and the third one is kind of the maintenance and repairs. We won't talk a lot about that tonight. So let's start with, what do you bring? Lots of people ask me this question. That's why in the back of the volunteer handbook, we put packing lists in there. They're Appendix I. There's lots of stuff in there. I think that's Cragen. Is that you, Cragen? That's trucking down the Suntop Trail or Kelly Butte Trail?
It is Cragen.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. See, like that, Cragen's packed. He's got it. He's all set to go. So it looks like he's all gung ho here. This is just a real quick summary of what's in there. If you're doing fire lookout duty, it's a little different than if you're doing trail patrol. In all cases, you got to make sure you're bringing your uniform, whether it's the SFLA shirt or a Forest Service shirt or a ball cap. We really want you to be thinking about bringing 10 essentials, even if you're on lookout duty. And here's why. We had a case last year where one of the volunteers' girlfriends came with him, and she went off for a walk from Suntop. She didn't take her cell phone. She didn't take a water bottle. She didn't take anything. And so we're up there. I'm up there with another volunteer, and we had to figure out how to respond. And I would tell you, I didn't have my 10 essentials with me. I didn't have anything. I was totally empty in my pack. I had to go down to the seed orchard to get a fire pack to grab, to go out there and to go do a quick trail search to look for this gal. As it turns out, we found her pretty quickly. But this is why we tell you, bring stuff up there that in case you got to respond to somebody, be thinking about this. So make sure you got a nice warm sleeping bag. Lots of people sleep nice and warm, but in those lookouts there's a lot of wind and it gets kind of cool. Insulating pad helps a lot too, even on top of that little folding cot. That's a good thing. Water, we recommend at least 2 liters per day per person. A lot of times there's leftover water up there. I always try to bring at least my drinking water with me. And sometimes if I'm going to be up at Kelly Butte, I may actually go up a couple days early and carry a couple of gallons and stash them somewhere up the trail. You can actually stash gallons of water at the trailhead at Kelly Butte, and people will pick them up. And you ask people, can you bring this to the lookout? Put a piece of paper on it or a label, and people will carry that water up for you. So there's a water source up at the lookout. It's a little pond. A lot of people don't want to drink out of it. I will filter it. It's perfectly okay. But by August, it's probably gone. So I wouldn't count on it. Also need to make sure you bring extra AA batteries for the radio. We're going to talk a lot about the radios. We do have rechargeable batteries now, but the extra radios are the just in case. If you're doing trail patrol, kind of the same thing. Trail stuff that you would normally take, 10 essentials, extra AA batteries, garbage bags, gloves for picking up garbage, things like that, and enough things that you can help somebody if somebody out there in the trail has a problem. Okay. There's also a volunteer bag for each one of the lookouts, as well as for the trail patrollers. And inside those bags are very specific things. Every one of the bags is a radio. They have radio instructions, binoculars, compass. There's a map of the Snoqualmie Ranger District. There are fire report forms. There's medical incident forms. There's trail report forms. There's lots of stuff in there. There's also keys. So the Suntop bag has the Suntop keys as well as the key to the gate. The Kelly Butte bag has the Kelly Butte keys, and the Trails bag has no keys. It's important you grab the right bag. If you grab the wrong bag, you're going to get up to the lookout and discover you're stuck. And now whoever's coming in that's looking for that bag, is going to have a problem as well. So they're going to be kind of peeved at you. So make sure you're grabbing the right bag. They're very clearly marked, and it should be easy to tell. What's inside the lookouts? Well, the lookouts are basically pretty much the same. Got a couple of bunks, one bunk bed as well as one folding bed. There's garbage bags, first aid box, a little first aid box that got kind of general, what I call a Band-Aid box, for little owies. I'm going to come back to that red bag in a second. There's chairs, tables. We've got squeegee for washing windows, mouse traps, empty buckets for food and garbage, mop in a bucket. There's a Pulaski. There's a kerosene heater at Suntop only, but there will be a propane stove that takes those little 1 pound green propane bottles. There'll be one of those at each one of the lookouts as well. Each one of the lookouts now also has an emergency kit. This is a red bag. It's designed for serious emergencies. In there is trauma equipment. There is a CPR mask. There is a breather mask. There is emergency gloves. There is personal protective equipment. We also have inside each one of those bags, we have a defibrillator we have quick clot. We have a lot of things in there that if you got a really serious emergency, that's what these bags are designed for. They're designed to use if you have the qualifications. Now, some of you have advanced first aid. Some of you on the phone are doctors, nurses, EMTs. That's great. This is the gear you can use. And like I said, there's one of these for each one of the lookouts. So open it up, take a look at it, kind of check it out, get a feel for yourself as to what's in there, just so you can kind of be thinking about how would I make use of this. So let's talk about volunteering. So trail patrol, we've been doing it for a couple of years, but this is really something we're trying to encourage this year, particularly. If you look at the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, in particular the Snoqualmie Ranger District, at any one time, there might only be 2 professional paid staffers doing backcountry trail patrols in the entire Ranger District. We have 220 miles of trails, and we got 2 people out there. Now, we have volunteers, lots of volunteers up in the I-90 corridor. We haven't had many volunteers on the 410, but we really want to encourage that. We'd love to see patrollers out on the trails like Greenwater, Skookum Flats, Summit Lake, places like that. What do you have to do? Well, you're kind of going through the training right now, but the starting point is let us know that you're going to go out so we can kind of start keeping track of that and pay attention to what you're doing. When you go out on trail patrol, we want you to wear your SFLA shirt. You're doing just what we talked about at the beginning of this training. We're representing the Forest Service. We're kind of observing. We're basically eyes and ears of what's taking place. Greet the visitors and answer questions. Like, where does this trail go? Well, it says Greenwater Lakes Trail. Where do you think it goes? No, don't be like that. Be a little less sarcastic than I am. So monitor the radio. Educate visitors about fire and outdoor safety. It's really hugely important. Many of these visitors are going out there, have no clue. They don't have a lot of experience in the outdoors. They might be relatively new to the Northwest, and they may not have any idea about things like hypothermia or fire safety. So we want to report unattended campfires, extinguish them if they're still contained. And in all that cases, though, we're going to report those fires. And then at the end, we make a report. This is kind of what a volunteer date might look like. Basically, tell us in advance, I'm going for a hike and this is where I'm going. And then pick up the volunteer bag, the trail patrol volunteer bag from the gazebo behind the Enumclaw Ranger Station. When we're talking about the gazebo box, that's what we're talking about. If you go to the Enumclaw Forest Service Ranger Station, the National U.S. Forest Service Ranger Station, and you drive around the back, there's a gazebo, and inside of there is a green Rubbermaid box. And inside that is all of the SFLA stuff. The combination is in your volunteer guide, but it is 1932. It's the year that Suntop was basically established as a lookout. Open that box up, grab the bag out, take a look at what's in there, make sure all the things you expect to be are in there. Record your name on a whiteboard. There's a whiteboard right there. You want to put your name and your vehicle and your destination on the volunteer board and when you're going to be back. Because this tells us then if we don't see you come back, it gives us an idea of where to start looking. Go to the trailhead, and once you set foot out of your car, that's when you call Puget Sound on the radio, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And you tell them, I am going and doing a trail patrol. I am going up to Summit Lake. I've got 2 people with me, and I'll be back around 5 p.m. And so then Summit Puget Sound will keep track of that. And then you basically just gather statistics, things that basically would be helpful to the Forest Service to know what's going on. Talk to people as you come by, stop at campsites, call in unattended fires and extinguish if you can. If you see fires, you're going to report them. And then once you get back to the trailhead, check back out with Puget Sound. I usually say you check in with Puget Sound the second you step out of your car, and I check out with Puget Sound the last thing I do before I get back into my car. That's the easy way to remember this. And that's, by the way, for lookout duty as well. Return to Enumclaw, erase your stuff off the whiteboard because you've come home safely, put the bag back in the box, and fire your fire report. So this is what the trail patrol report looks like. I'm not going to give you gross details about this, but you can kind of see it's really gathering just a lot of information of how many people did you run into? How much litter did you pick up? That's a little, a medium amount, or a high amount, or a lot, a medium, and humongous. Okay. Fire rings destroyed, toilet conditions. And then if you did any other trail work like brushing or cutting branches or digging on trails or fixing drain dips or things like that, this is a chance to kind of do that as well. Let's talk about fire lookout duties. Fire lookouts are a little bit more formal, unlike the trail patrols where you basically can go out anytime and do anything you want to. The fire lookout is basically based on assignment, and you're assigned a duty. Your duty basically starts on the day of your arrival at noon and goes to the day of your scheduled departure day, or from the time you take over from the previous person to the time you basically turn over to the next person. In general, your duty day is 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Where we are open for visitors, we basically say we're open for visits from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. You don't have to have the door open during your meal times. You can basically have a meal in peace inside the lookout. But generally, then the rest of the time, we'd like to be open for visitors. We ask you to scan for fires about every 2 hours. And so that's kind of the general look during the daytime. During the nighttime, I kind of just keep my eyes open once in a while, but that's about it. So we want to monitor the radio for messages, do any work that we're scheduled. And of course, we need to check the toilet at least once per day. At Suntop, what that means is going to refill the toilet paper and to clean the toilet as needed. We do have brooms. We do have mops. We are going to get a couple of barrels of water, which we'll be keeping filled up there. That'll give you the amount, some water you can put in a pump sprayer and with some bleach, and you can basically spray that around to kind of to desanitize or sanitize stuff. If the toilet's really a mess, like somebody's had a major explosion in there for whatever reason, you may have to call the Forest Service at Enumclaw, or you call Valerie and myself, and we'll basically get the Forest Service pump truck up there, and we'll basically use the pump sprayer and clean things out. So Kelly Butte, the cleaning of the toilet is much easier. It's a wilderness toilet. It's a box out in the woods. And the only way to clean it is if it starts to get full, basically we have tools to look out, dig a new one. There is a criteria that you have to build. You have to make sure that the toilet location has a great view. That's the important part, okay? So how does your average volunteer day go as a lookout? Well, you start by having talked to the person that's before you. You know whether you're going to either pick that volunteer bag up in person or at the lookout, okay? At the gazebo, at the lookout. And you want to prearrange this. You want to be talking to the person that's shift is before you, and you want to talk to them at least a few days before their shift is, because they may be up there on lookout duty and they may not have cell phone service, okay? And then the same thing with the person that's going to take over with you from you. You want to talk to them before you head to lookout to make sure you've got a plan of how you're going to turn over. You wipe down the radio. There are some alcohol wipes and some sanitizing wipes inside the green box. Wipe it down. By the way, don't spray the radio off. Wipe the keys down. Wipe the binoculars down. Anything you think could be kind of nasty. Record your name, vehicle, and destination on that whiteboard, the volunteer bag board we're talking about.
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
Will there be like a roster who's doing patrol each day or lookout volunteering each day so you know who's the person in before you and after?
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get closer to the end. We talk about the shifts, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Vera. Good question, though. By the way, you want to make sure you account for drive time. If you're going from Suntop Lookout, going to Suntop Lookout from Enumclaw, you need to plan to an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours to get there. I mean, I can do it in an hour, but I'm really used to it. And I need to look at the roads. I don't really think much about the roads anymore. If you're going to Kelly Butte, you need to plan 2 to 3 hours from the Enumclaw Ranger Station to get to Kelly Butte lookout, and you need to plan additional packing time if you're going to pack stuff up. So, for example, if you're going to take over at noon from Kelly Butte, you need to be leaving Enumclaw about 9 to 9:30 at the latest, okay, to get up there for turnover. You may actually want to leave a little earlier than that because that trail, especially in the heat of summer, gets really hot going up that gorge, and it can get really, really toasty going up that trail. So you may want to even go up earlier, and you can just, lay down in the shade in one of the camp spots, or you can kind of wander the meadows or pick huckleberries or whatever, and just hang out and be nice and cool and waiting for your time to take on your shift. So what's your primary duties? Well, you're going to end up interacting with the public. We mentioned we have a lot of people that come out, they come to these lookouts, they don't understand fire lookouts. Most of them have no idea what the fire lookouts are there for and why they're there. And, why do we even staff fire lookouts today? They don't really understand the national forest. They don't know the difference between the national forest and the national parks. And so this is one of the chances we have to educate these people and talk to them about what are some of the differences about what we're doing. I would ask you on your own, if you look at Appendix A in the volunteer handbook, you're going to find a whole bunch of facts and figures about fire lookouts. Why did fire lookouts start? How many fire lookouts are there in the United States or in Washington State? By the way, in Washington State, there's 93 standing fire lookouts in Washington State. Of them, only 26 are still staffed. And of those, only 3 are staffed on the west side of Western Washington. And that is Kelly Butte, Suntop, and Miners Ridge. Those are the only 3 that are staffed. Granite Mountain is sometimes staffed, but not this year. So it's not operational. And so it makes the fact that we have an operational fire lookout this close to Seattle pretty unique. And so think about it and kind of, be prepared to share a quick story with the lookout visitors as to what's significant about these lookouts. Suntop is an original 1932. It's one of the original buildings still left that's originally a fire lookout and has been in operational service since that time. Kelly Butte is a relatively newbie. It was basically rebuilt in the 1950s. And so it's a little younger, but it's still a pretty impressive operational lookout. And it was rebuilt back in 2008 to 2011 and rebuilt to look the way it is right now. So how does the rest of your shift go? Well, at the end of your shift, you basically are going to kind of do everything in reverse. You basically have talked to the person that's going to be taking over for you. You want to make sure you complete your cleanup in time to depart the lookout for them to take over. Or if you have to leave, you can basically go on down. If you didn't make an arrangement for a turnover, you need to head down so you can be down to the Forest Service station by noon. Now, if you have no relief, that is, there's nobody on the schedule behind you, you can hang out at the lookout. Just stay up there for the rest of the afternoon. You're certainly welcome to. So, return the bag back into the gazebo box. Erase your name off the volunteer board, and then turn in your lookout report. We're going to talk about the lookout report in a second. There's a few funny things about Suntop. Suntop is a drive-up lookout, but it's got a gate at the top. We want this gate to be open when the public can come up and access, and we want to close it during the other hours. It's not your choice to leave it open. The lookout gate is closed after 8 p.m. and is opened up at 8 a.m. When you get, by the way, and do not ever leave the gate unlocked and then drive away. Please don't ever do that. When you arrive at the lookout, you're going to report yourself as being in service. If you leave the lookout to walk around, you want to make sure you take the radio with you. Just tuck it in your back pocket, okay? If you go to the toilet, don't set it down such that it's going to fall in the toilet, because I ain't diving into that toilet to go get the radio back. Trust me, guys, okay? And same thing with your cell phone. I'm not diving into the toilet to go get your cell phone, and you shouldn't either. We go out of service, like I said, at 6 p.m. is kind of the end of your duty day, and you're going to report to Puget Sound that you are out of service for the night and what your plan is. I'm going to be overnighting at Suntop Lookout, and I'll be back in service in the morning. And then when morning time comes, you go put yourself back in service at 7:30 in the morning, including what your plan is for the day. I'm going to be here all day. I am turning over at noon. Whatever your plan is. As I mentioned, we close the gate around 8 p.m. We do not lock the gate with vehicles inside. Now I'm not talking about your vehicle. I'm talking about public vehicles. And we don't let vehicles stay inside the gate after hours. So around 7:30 p.m., you need to be going around and talking to the visitors and say you need to take your vehicle outside the gate. You can walk back up, but you can't leave your vehicle inside the gate. And then, of course, there's no tents, no camping allowed for overnight visitors above the gate. If they want to camp, they want a tent, they got to basically do that below the gate. Kelly Butte, a little bit more remote, 2.1 miles from the trailhead. By the way, that is the helipad. We sometimes have people that try to camp on the helipad. That's a bad place to camp because sometimes the helicopters come in and land there. Kelly Butte's a little different in that you report yourself into Puget Sound when you leave Kelly Butte Trailhead, when you're starting to head up to the lookout. You remember what I said? You basically talk to Puget Sound, you report yourself in service when you basically leave your vehicle. That's what you're doing here. And then once you arrive at the lookout, you're going to basically tell Puget Sound you've arrived at the lookout and the lookout is in service. We'll talk more about radio etiquette in a few minutes. Kind of same rule. If you leave the lookout to go walk around, lock the lookout, take your radio with you. You really do want to lock the lookout behind you. If you don't, you're just leaving all your stuff in there for somebody else to steal. So just kind of telling you. And the same way, on or before 6 p.m., you want to tell Puget Sound what your plan is. I am going to basically be spending the night at the lookout. I'll be back in service tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. You put yourself back in service and you tell them your plans. When you get ready to leave Kelly Butte and head for the trailhead, you're going to call Puget Sound and say, I am departing Kelly Butte Lookout, en route the trailhead. And then we arrive at the trailhead, you're going to call Puget Sound and say, I've arrived at the trailhead and I'm going out of service right now. Camping is allowed at Kelly Butte. You have to be at least 100 yards away from the lookout. They should not camp on the helicopter pad, and we do not allow camping on the deck of either one of the lookouts. Nobody's sleeping on the decks, please. That's not a good practice. It's too hazardous. By the way, there is the lovely Kelly Butte toilet. I said, you're only judged on how well you dig the hole and whether or not you made a good place that's got a view. So, or if you can pick huckleberries from the seat there, that's good too. So. At the end of your shift, we're going to ask you to fill out a fire lookout shift report. It may actually be better to start filling this in while you're up there. We'll have blanks up there in each one of the lookouts, basically available for you to go ahead and fill them in. And it's pretty straightforward. Who was there, in service, out of service times, total number of visitors per day. We got a little clicker in each one of the bags that basically you click off the number of people that are coming through. Number of hours you were in service or how many hours you worked, what you accomplished if you did something special. I picked up litter. I basically worked on the Suntop Trail, whatever the things are, any unusual circumstances. And then if you need to, if there's maintenance issues, hey, we're running low on toilet paper, whatever. Once you've done with your lookout shift, you can drop this report off in the gazebo box or email this to snoqualmielookouts@gmail.com. This is what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward. It's very easy to read. It's nothing important. All these numbers are really important. These numbers help us, and your hours help us to justify this program with the Forest Service. And so they really like to be able to get this information, comments heard, any shift comments you had, anything like that that you can share. It helps us, again, justify why we're doing this. All right. So there's also some other forms in the back. We're going to talk about a few of these. The smoke report form and the medical incident report form, both are in the back of the handout in the handbook. There's also some blanks. There will be some blanks in the lookout bags. But here's a question to ask you to kind of get your juices thinking about. So you're on duty and a mountain biker comes up to you at Suntop Lookout, having had a major crash on the trail. and they kind of indicate they're hit their head quite hard. They had a helmet on. They're feeling kind of out of sorts, and they're having a hard time focusing and communicating. So what's your duty here? What do you have to do? Anybody?
Well, we have that larger first aid kit. Get them, take the helmet off, make sure that they're not bleeding too much. Make
Okay.
sure there's no like physical injuries. Report it to PSEC and get everyone out and down out of the gate and tell PSEC that you're leaving the lookout, lock everything up behind you, take him down to the nearest emergency center.
Okay. Good idea. Thanks, Gage. Good. Anybody else?
I was going to say you just got to take care of them and radio it in.
Yeah. So this is kind of a trick question. The answer is you're representing the Forest Service. What would the Forest Service want you to do here? Obviously, you need to take care of this person to the best of your ability. You're limited to, again, the best of your training. You're basically the Good Samaritan law in the Washington state basically talks about that. The protection you have is based on your training and that you haven't exceeded your training. Okay. This person's probably actually suffered a pretty severe head injury. And if they're having a hard time communicating, this is something that's going to take priority out of over everything else you're doing. You're probably going to shove everybody out, tell everybody out. I probably wouldn't drive them down. If they have a real problem and they go into convulsions on the way down, I don't want to have them in the car trying to deal with them having a convulsion. What I am going to call is Puget Sound saying, we got a medical emergency here. We need some medical help up here. And if you can't reach Puget Sound, probably going to call 911 and try to get some medical assistance up the hill to help them out. So, but I mean, again, your answer is right on the money. We're going to care for them as best we can within the limits of our capability. There's a lot of stuff in that trauma bag that could apply here, including some good materials. Again, I'd just be thinking about scenarios like this. If this happened, what would I do? And that's the whole purpose of this question we've tossed in here. So, okay. This is your medical incident report form, by the way, just for future reference. You're not going to take the time to fill this out other than the basics as you're doing this. This is basically the sort of stuff you're going to be thinking through as you're walking through this problem with this person. Are they breathing? Are they conscious? What caused it? Where are they at? Well, they're at Suntop Lookout. And then you kind of be thinking about what's the severity of injury. Is it urgent? Unconscious, difficulty breathing, priority, significant trauma. This one's probably a significant trauma. I think this is probably that number two, if not number one.
You can play now. Ben is not here. I'm sending back a list of all the games. Excellent.
Okay. So we got a question, Vera?
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, no.
Okay. And then you kind of see as you gather more information, you're going to basically gather more information and report this into Puget Sound as required. So in summary, lookout duty can be a lot of fun, especially get a chance to meet a lot of people. You can meet people from all over the world. You meet people from Russia, Norway, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Korea, Japan, Singapore, Australia. And I meet a lot of folks. And you get a chance to chat with a lot of people. Get a chance to share the Forest Service and share your love for the forest with these people. Kind of reminder, arrange your turnover in advance. Don't wait till you're up there at the lookout, because invariably when you need to do that, your cell phone will run out of battery and go stupid. Your duty starts at noon on your first day, ends at noon on your last day, and on duty, 7:30 a.m., generally to 6 p.m. Report into Puget Sound when you're assuming duty, when going on duty for the day, at the end of the duty day, checking out, heading home. So, and keep good records. All right, let's take a 5-minute break right there, and we will come back at 7:05, okay? Anybody questions about the first section? Okay, So let's put your knowledge to the test. So you are a lookout visitor and you come up to a lookout and you walk into lookout and you see this, okay? I'm gonna let you have 30 seconds to study this picture and then tell me what's wrong with this picture, okay? So. And there's a lot wrong with this picture. Five seconds. Okay, time's up. All right, so I'm going to ask especially the first time volunteers. So just sing out one thing that you see that's wrong here, one at a time.
Pack of Marlboros.
Pack of Marlboros. All right, that's very good. Yeah, they should be smoking Camels. No,
the
they shouldn't have
multiple
anything
firearms.
there. Sorry.
The multiple firearms.
Multiple firearms. It's okay to have one firearm. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying I can see there's one, two that I can see. Any of them. Any
Yeah, they're
firearm.
not supposed to be any firearms
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So, all right, that's good. Keep
alcohol.
going. Alcohol. Which alcohol, Rick?
I see a case of beer there. I see like a bottle of, I don't know, rum or whiskey or something.
Yeah, alcohol. Yeah, that's a no-no. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thanks, Rick.
The open garbage can and the food
Open
open on the
garbage
table.
can.
Woody being hung.
Woody being hung. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe this is somebody that hates Toy Story, but I don't think that presents a good picture to the public. Do you? Okay, that's got issues.
Yeah,
What
they
else?
We've got Buddy sleeping.
Oh,
while the-
somebody's sleeping
while
during
it's
the
open.
duty. Yeah, that's probably not acceptable, is it? So, Jenny Lee, you had something.
Oh yeah, so the jet boil that creates an open flame.
Yeah, jet boils the open flame. That's actually okay, but there is a
Oh.
problem with it. What's the problem with it?
It's
Oh,
on
it's on-
top of the Osborne.
It's on top of this really expensive antique Osborne firefinder. We don't put anything on top of the Osborne firefinder. Okay. Good. All right, keep going. We've got other things here wrong. Lots of things wrong.
Pile of laundry.
Pile of dirty laundry. Kind of not really presenting a really good picture of the Forest Service or the SFLAs. Okay.
Can of oil or fuel?
Can of fuel. Oh, you're right. There is
Mhm.
liquid fuel right down here underneath. Somebody's sleeping on top of that. That's probably not a great idea.
Is that like a baggie of like drugs above that?
Definitely.
What? No,
Yeah,
that's
I
just
can't.
oregano. I'm just cooking with that. That's okay.
Okay. We're making pizzas up there. Okay, I got you.
No, yeah, we don't have green leafy, smoking vegetables up there, or even eating vegetables with us. Sorry, it's federal property. There, it doesn't matter what Washington State says. The feds rule in this case. So, all right, keep going. We got at least three more things, guys.
The lantern,
Oh, the lantern. What's wrong with the lantern, Chip?
it's open flame or
Open flame and liquid fuel. Okay, that's
And I-
bad. All right, what else?
I think the radio where it's at.
Wait a
it's
minute,
usually-
you only get to do one here, Chip.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
All right. What's left?
The open food that's untended.
Oh yeah, open Thai food sitting here on the box. It doesn't matter, it's just Thai food. It's the fact that we left food in the open. Yeah, not a good plan. That's just going to invite the mice and the chipmunks to come inside. Keep going. So one more thing.
The radio sitting on the Osborne firefinder.
Yeah, the radio sitting up high isn't against the rules. It's a really bad practice because what happens if that radio falls over? It's going to fall to the ground. And while these are pretty tough radios, they are pretty hard to break. They can be broken, and then you're going to basically be radioless for a while. So what about Smokey Bear? What's wrong with him?
Probably a shot.
Nothing, he's cute and cuddly.
Yeah, it's a trick question. There's nothing wrong with Smokey Bear. He's cute and cuddly. All right. Yeah, and he's my hero. All right, good job, guys. A lot of good things here. A lot of things that you noticed, I think everybody hit them all. So like I said, there's some things that are just questionable. They're not against the rules. Some are very clearly against the rules. Some are just not good practices. And we just want you to, be thinking through how do I make this look good when a visitor comes in? So, okay. So let's talk about this connecting with the public. So what's our number one job? Representing the Forest Service and the SFLA. Being the friendly face of the Forest Service to the public. So our job is to basically help the public enjoy and engage in the national forest land. That's a lot of what we try to do. So the vast majority of your interactions, far and away, the vast majority of interactions are going to be positive, in large part because people recognize you as volunteers, that volunteer shirt thing, your volunteer ball cap, and they like that. They think that's pretty cool. And of course, they're going to want to try to kind of cozy up to you. We try to start every conversation with a smile, even at 2 a.m. Sometimes it's hard to do that. It's a day when you've got 350 visitors coming up there. When you get to the 350th visitor, it's probably getting a little hard to smile. Sarah O'Clock and Lisa, I think you guys experienced that last year. Probably pretty tired at the end of the day, weren't you? So we want to wear a uniform, that SFLA shirt, a Forest Service shirt, a Forest Service hat. All this indicates to the public that we're not just somebody that's hanging around up there. We're someone they can approach, someone they can ask for information, somebody they can get some assistance. This radio is a badge of office, if you want to think about it. It's just a way to kind of communicate to the public that I'm not just a person that just hangs out up here. I'm actually on duty. So, and we really want to try to use all the opportunities to avoid conflicts and rather than creating them. What are most of your interactions going to be? They're going to want information about the lookout. I would suggest to you that you want to think about, how do I greet visitors? What would I do to greet a visitor? I have a little memorized spiel I use and all the kind of spout it out there. Welcome to Suntop Lookout. Suntop is a lookout that's been in service here since 1932 and has been as an operational fire lookout since then. Today, it is an operational fire lookout. It's one of 3 left on the west side of Washington State that are operational and in service. It's manned by volunteers from the Snoqualmie Fire Lookouts Association from about the end of June until the end of September. And we are actually out there watching for fires. That's our primary mission from being up here, as well as to help people understand the lookout and tour this place. So that was about 30 seconds. What are they going to want to know next? What takes place inside the fire lookout? So thinking through this spiel and how you greet people. A lot of people come up, they're going to want to know places to hike, trails in the area. Inside each one of the lookout bags is a map of the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, the Snoqualmie Ranger District particularly. And so when I go on duty, I will lay the map out on the bunk and I will kind of look at it and kind of orient myself and get a feel for what am I seeing with this map. It's got a lot of the trails marked on it. If I look and try to figure out where are my popular trails at, from where I'm at, where is Skookum Flats Trail? Where is Summit Lake Trail? Things like that. So what are the peaks in the area? There's actually will be, right now it's on the wall, but there'll be a book of panoramic pictures in a little 3-ring binder. So people can look through those and each one of the peaks are identified with that. You can use the Firefinder. There's actually apps on your phone now that you can basically use, and they'll basically be Peak. I think it's called Peak Finder. Somebody else may know what the app I'm talking about. Get to the point where you're familiar with the area. So if people ask me, what's that big place over there with no trees on it? Well, that's the Norse Peak Fire, that one that took place back in 2017. They may want to know places you can camp. Well, you can't camp up here, but you can camp at the Dalles or Silver Spring campgrounds. Those are reservation campgrounds, or there's unorganized campgrounds, basically first come, first serve, along the 73 road, along the 70 road, Ranger Creek Airfield, etc. So these are the sort of questions you'll ask. You're also going to get people that are going to want to know how to join the Lookout Association. How do I get to be a fire lookout? Well, they got little business cards up there, and we got little brochures, and tell them why did you join the Fire Lookout Association? What's your reason for being here? Talk to people. Again, most of these conversations you're going to be really positive. You're going to have some challenges with this thing called special use permits. Special use permits are something the Forest Service requires for any commercial or any special use of the forest, such as filming commercials, road races, big family gatherings, weddings, things like that. So they can get these by talking to the Forest Service. We don't issue them out there. They are required for weddings and special events, especially at Suntop. Suntop is very popular. Lots of people go up there. And now with the ADA deck, we're going to see even more people going up there every single year. We have a big White River 50 trail running race. This is where people basically run the trails for 50 miles. I think they're crazy personally, but that's just me. And weddings and, you know, big family gatherings, you'll see all these things. Particularly at Suntop, we have to pay close attention to this. The special use permits require the user to have applied in advance and talk to the Forest Service, and the Forest Service then gives them back the special use permit signed. They have to have it with them. It does not give them exclusive use of the area. You know, if they're up at Suntop or they're at Kelly Butte, they can't tell other people they can't be up there. And you can't either, and we don't want you to. They can't lock the gate. They can't close the road because they don't want the dust on the wedding party. That's not allowed. Effectively, the public gets as much access as they want to. This just allows them to have permission to have their special event taking place on that. They cannot kick people out of the lookout while they're filming, and they cannot do an event which takes over the entire deck. We're not doing wedding ceremonies. We're not doing wedding pictures on the deck where the public is not allowed to come in and out. Okay. The reason we bring this up is this was a problem last year where our volunteers got sucked into conflicts involving special use permits and weddings. And so we're trying to make sure everybody understands what their role is. Our role with the special use permits is we're not there to enforce them, but we are there to remind them what the rules are. They know what the rules are. They've been told those rules. They sometimes need a reminder. The photographers may not know what the rules are. They kind of need a reminder as well. We're not going to enforce the rules, but we're at the same time not going to allow these SUP holders to run roughshod over other visitors. We've had cases where the permit holders basically want to run people off. It's like, no, we're not doing that. So you can assist them if possible. You know, if it's dumping rain outside and the bride is standing outside in her wedding dress, I might invite her into the lookout. I think that would be the kind thing to do. That's just me. Okay. It's not your primary job, but, you know, try to help out if you can, you know, make some goodwill. If people are doing something that you think should require an SUP or they're misbehaving, you know, we've advised them, just record their information, you know, write their names down if you got them, license plate numbers, what they're doing, and email it to us, and we will turn it over to the permit enforcers, and they'll take care of that. That's their issue. Any questions about special use permits? This is a new section of training. We haven't talked about this before. Anybody? Okay. So what are some of the common challenges? Sorry, go ahead.
Is there a minimum size that requires a permit? Like if there's just 3 people up there doing something, that's okay, but if there's over 6, they need a permit or?
It depends on the activity. If it's a wedding, they have to have a special use permit. That is mostly to prevent the nightmarish scenario of 2 brides and their parties showing up on the same day at the same time at the lookout, expecting to be able to do their wedding up there.
Right.
That would be on TMZ. The follies, the video that would take place there. Any commercial activity, if they're up there and they're doing a commercial, you know, shooting event, and they're out, like I said, shooting a commercial, anything like that, that's, you know, they're not allowed to be doing that. That's a non-starter. They have to have a special use permit. Flying a drone, by the way, does not require a special use permit. They are allowed to fly drones around the lookouts, except if they are flying that drone in an unsafe fashion. If that drone is getting close to people, then they need to down the drone. We're not going to enforce that. We're simply going to capture their information, and we will send it off to the Forest Service law enforcement, and they will report it to the FAA, and that person will basically get their drone license revoked. Does that help?
John, so if we're there and there's a wedding and they're not happy with other visitors up there, and you know they're complaining to us and we're reminding them like, hey, that's just part of the permit. Like, you guys can have this, but we're still open to the public, and they get upset. Like, I mean, right away, do we call that in and let, like, on the radio, or like, hey, we have a group up here, or like, I mean, does it have to escalate before we call it in, or do you want to know, like, right away someone is like inquiring, or,
We've just explained to them the rules, and if they don't like the rules, they're going to complain, in which case you can say you need to talk to the permit administrator, and you're welcome to complain to him, but you still cannot, we're still not going to allow you to run roughshod over other people. If they get really obnoxious, we're going to talk about that next, and that's how you know. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Like, do you want to know, like, right away if somebody is like pushing it, or does it need to get kind of like to the point where you're feeling a bit nervous?
If it's
where
bad, you're gonna call it in, and we're gonna get some help up there for you.
Okay.
Last year we actually had a volunteer. One of the guests was screaming at her, yelling at her, and she finally did the right thing. She basically walked away from it and got on the radio and called for some help. Got on the phone and called for some help. But it's just, this is a challenge. And I said, this year it's going to be more challenging because we've got a lot more advertising. Seattle Times did an article on Suntop. Seattle Times is going to be doing another article on, what it's like to be a forest fire lookout today. And so they'll be doing that this summer too. Don't know if they'll be doing Kelly Butte or Suntop, but yeah. Okay. What are some of the challenges? I don't want to go below the gate. Why can't I sleep on the deck? I thought the lookouts were first come, first serve. Why can't I set off fireworks up here? What's the issue with carving my name in the railing or the lookout or the bench? Why do I have to pay for a Northwest Forest Pass? Some of these questions seem very stupid, but some of these questions basically come down to the point of people just don't know any better. Some of the lookouts in the Cascades are first come, first serve. Not very many of them. Most of them are either reservations or they are actually in service, but there's a few up north, and Winchester and I think Hidden Lake basically are places people that can just go. They don't know better. And so this is where we have to kind of, be patient and answer their questions. Why can't I sleep on the deck? Because it's not allowed, because it's unsafe. Okay. I don't want to go below the gate. I'm sorry. The Forest Service requires us to ask you to go below the gate and lock the gate at 8 p.m. A lot of these things you can basically push off on the Forest Service. So that's pretty easily done. Some of them more basic. Why can't I set off fireworks up here? Because fireworks are illegal in the National Forest, and they'll get you a $500 fine if you get caught. And oh, by the way, I'm writing down your license plate number right now. What's the issue with carving my name in the railing or the lookout? Sometimes you just can't, I don't know. Never mind. Why do I have to pay for a Northwest Forest Pass? Because that's the regulation. So how do you deal with these? Well, there's a lot of techniques to deal with them, but this is frankly I always try to, again, I'm presenting myself as I'm a volunteer. I'm the friendly face of the Forest Service. I'm the friendly Smokey Bear. I am not the person that makes these rules. I know this is frustrating. I'm very sorry. I appreciate your understanding. The forest rules are the federal laws. They're there for safety and conservation reasons. There's a reason why they're there, and we all have to follow them. As volunteers, we're not here to enforce the laws. We will report on any violations we see. That's kind of the job. So again, I'm not trying to be the bad guy. I'm not trying to be the cop, but I'm trying to reason with them and explain things to them. When in doubt, I need to get back to work. I have to go clean the toilet. You're welcome to come down and help me clean the toilet. That always shakes them off my back if there's a problem. So if things get worse or things get bad, kind of like that volunteer described last year, walk away. Don't stay in a conflict. You are a volunteer. It's not our job to get involved in these things. We walk away. We basically let somebody else deal with it. Don't confront a problem. At the same time, if you're walking away, don't turn your back on the problem person. Turning your back on a problem person can be considered by some people you're dismissing them, and it can actually invite attack. So we don't do that. Back away gently, carefully, using a friendly voice. If they continue, like last year, they followed our volunteer. Remind the person that you're a federal officer. You got a radio. By the way, when you were on duty up there, you are a federal officer. And if they assault you, they have committed assault on a federal officer, which is a class 1 felony, and they're going to go to jail for a while. Okay. So they don't want to be doing that. Use this radio, not as a brick, but basically get on there and say, Puget Sound, I need law enforcement assistance up at Kelly Butte Lookout or up at Suntop or, at Skookum Flats Trailhead or wherever that's at. So if Puget Sound is not in service, you can actually call out any law enforcement ranger. This is hearing on Suntop repeater. I need law enforcement assistance at Suntop Lookout right now. It turns out Pierce County Sheriff, Washington State Repairs, or Washington State Patrol, as well as the Forest Service law enforcement listen to these radios. Okay. If you can't get help on the radio, you call 911. This is one of those few cases where you basically call 911 and ask for help. By the way, if you do that, you got to be prepared to tell them where you're at. I'm telling you, this is not very likely, guys. None of this is terribly likely, but we want you to kind of think through what would be the steps you would do if this turned out to be a problem. And of course, if possible, retreat, lock yourself on the lookout, get in your car, drive away, hike away, leave your stuff. Just don't worry about it. Just get away from there. Get out of the circumstances. Let somebody else deal with it. If this happens, make sure you let us know after the fact what took place, detailed notes, times descriptions, people's descriptions, license numbers, etc. Again, that's where our volunteer did last year. She got all the information about this person. We turn it over to law enforcement. We let them deal with it. So, all right. So if somebody had a problem or you had a problem up at Suntop, how would you tell a 911 dispatcher where you're at? By the way, we do not use 911 to report fires. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Okay. Fires are not emergencies. Medical emergencies, law enforcement emergencies, those are things it's okay to call 911, not fires. If you're at Suntop, how would you describe where you're at? Anybody want to take a crack at that?
You're at the end of Forest Road 7315.
Oh, cool. Where's that at?
410.
Yeah. Okay. I'm at the end of Forest Road 7315, which comes off of Forest Road 73, which comes off of State Route 410, approximately 6 miles east of Greenwater, Washington. There you go. I've just told a 911 dispatcher where to find me. A lot of 911 guys have no idea. The 911 dispatch that we're operating with is actually down in Olympia, Southcom. They have no idea where Kelly Butte Lookout or Suntop is at. I can give them a lat long. They can figure it out. Most of the Pierce County Sheriff's deputies know how to get to these lookouts. Washington State Patrol does not, and fortunately Greenwater Fire does.
Back up. I can't get through here.
Yeah. Aaron, you got questions?
Oh, my apologies. I was
Okay.
just trying to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it on mute. My apologies.
So, by the way, the directions of how to get to these lookouts and how you describe these lookouts out are right there in the front couple pages of the lookout handbook. So, read those over, and again, be prepared to kind of think through how would I tell somebody where I'm at. So, okay. It's kind of a summarize this. Most of your experiences with the public are going to be positive. The very, very, very rarely occasional visitor will be challenging. And in the years I've been doing this, I can think of one person that was even close to being challenging and not this bad. Most of the time, remain the friendly face of the Forest Service. And if it doesn't work, don't confront, be sympathetic, walk away, call for assistance, retreat, just get away from the problem if you have to. Okay, any questions about that? We are not going to take a break. We're going to come back to that. Give me a thumbs up. Is everybody getting this? Everybody listening to this? I hope.
Yep.
Yes, I'm listening.
All right.
Yep.
Making sense. Okay, good. Okay. So let's talk about communications and reporting. So, the primary reason for these fire lookout towers before aerial reconnaissance and satellites and stuff was basically spot fires. Most of the fire lookouts started being built in the 1920s, and at one time there was thousands of them across the United States, 696 in Washington State alone. And so one of the things that we do is we explain to the public how fire lookouts operated back then and how they still operate today. And one of the key elements that makes that possible is communications. Reporting fires is one of the most essential things we do. Now, it is a skill set. We don't get to do it very often. We average reporting about 4 fires a year is kind of our average. But one of the key skills you start learning is, can I tell the difference between a fire and a cloud? And so, the thing we tell people is fires are things that you learn by watching. They're clues that tell you something is a fire. And the first thing is, the smoke moves vertically. It's basically moving from the ground, it's moving up, and it's moving fairly rapidly. Smoke from a fire is blue, brown, gray, or black. It's hardly ever white. White is usually steam from a fire that's being put out. And once in a while, I'll see a white smoke, but not very often. But fires are persistent. Smoke is persistent. When you look at a smoke and you think that might be a fire, go away and come back 15 minutes later and look at it and see if it's still there, because that'll tell you whether or not it's really a fire or not. We have this little game we play. Some of you guys have seen these pictures before, in which case, I'll let you play anyway. Use that reaction button if you can on your screen to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Tell me, is this fire or no fire? Or you can just call it out if you don't have that. So what do you think? Fire or no fire? Anybody?
No fire.
Okay, I see some thumbs down. Good, no fire. No fire, yep, okay. Those are just water dogs. We call those water dogs. They're just places where we get localized condensation of air and turns into a little cloud, and a few minutes later, that little cloud goes away. So how about this one? Fire or no fire?
Fire.
Fire, no doubt about that, yeah, okay. How about this one? Fire or no fire?
No fire.
I hear no fire. I see a thumbs up of fire from Chip. Anybody else think fire or no fire? What do you think? It's going sideways. I see 2. Gage says the fire. Erica says the fire. Aaron says no fire. Okay. What if I gave you the rest of the picture? Sometimes it's going to present like this. As it turns out, this one was drifting across the road down in Greenwater, and I spotted it, and I went, that's wrong because the color's wrong. It was brown. I went, that's not a cloud. And so I jumped down on the logging roads and went up until I could actually see it. And it turns out these are actually trash piles, slash piles being burned by the Muckleshoot tribe. But you can see how it's brownish looking, very clearly brown. Okay. Fire or no fire? What do you think? Or tough to tell?
Tough to tell. I'm going to say fire.
Okay. Rick says fire. Chip says fire. Gage says fire. Whoa. What if we give it a little different angle? What about that angle? What you thinking? Looks like fire, isn't it? So this is a fire that was spotted on the way up to Kelly Butte. This is just off the 7032 road on the way up to Kelly Butte. And this is a fire that we spotted pretty early and managed to get the fire crews onto it. So fire or no fire? This is pretty easy. Fire. So this was spotted by Terry Tomp. This was actually spotted from Suntop Lookout. And you can kind of look into the west there. That's the Huckleberry Ridge. And Terry watched this for about 30 to 45 minutes as it kept on coming and going and coming and going. And this was a lightning fire that slowly but surely was just kind of burning through the ground cover, and then finally hit a place where it found a lot of dry wood and it launched up. And that's kind of what you saw here. So I saw a raised hand. Somebody have a question?
Sorry, that was we accidentally pressed it. Sorry.
No worries. Okay.
So I feel sort of terribly, I don't feel very confident about distinguishing between this fire, no fire thing. So, I mean, what if you're up there and you have no idea and you're like, okay, I'm here to protect us from fires, but I have no idea.
What you're going to do
I
is you're
mean,
going to watch, observe, just like we're doing here. I mean, let's look at this one. Why would you think that's a fire? It's blue. The smoke is blue or gray. It's not just white. There's a little white down here, but it's mostly blue or gray. It's moving vertically and it's persistent. Terry watched it for 45 minutes and it kept on coming back at that same location. And those are the clues that tell you this is really a fire. When in doubt, you can go ahead and report it. And Puget Sound will maybe ask you just to watch it for a while, or they may ask somebody to come take a look at it. You know, they may ask one of their patrol trucks to come look. You know, they'll offer some help. So,
okay.
Could you ask just if there's like tourists or other hikers, you can like, hey, do you think that's fire? I mean, is that wrong?
You can, but for the most part, they don't have much experience spotting fires either. So the thing I would tell you is, as you start watching fires and learning to see what things are, you'll get much more confident in being able to see the fires and pick them out as to what they are. So, like I said, the big thing is you're watching for persistence. We want to take our time to make sure we got this right. And you know, it's not urgent that we make a fire decision and we basically start calling this in 5 minutes. It will take sometimes 2 or 3 hours before a fire crew gets to a fire site. So we take our time. We're trying to conserve their resources as well. Fire or no fire? This one's pretty easy. Yeah, fire. Thumbs up. Okay. Tough one. Fire or no fire? Now, this is Kelly Butte Lookout. This is from Suntop Lookout. I'm looking to the northeast. Or are you not sure? Well, it turns out this actually is a fire, but the fire you're seeing there is 100 miles away. From Kelly Butte, from Suntop, that fire is all the way over on the other side of Cle Elum. It's way the heck over there. And as it turns out, we watched it, and over the space of about 30 minutes, this cloud started to rise up. That's not what thunderclouds don't do that. They basically form from the top down. You'll see them form top down. This one was rising up. This column was rising up into the air and then, you know, going higher and higher. So that's kind of why we put this in here. Fire or no fire? Now, this is a tough one. A little tough to tell in this picture. And if you got a phone, you got really a problem. Gage, you got an idea here?
Wrong button, sorry.
Okay. So what if I said, you got to look closer? What if you look right there and I zoomed up on it? What do you see? Fire. Yeah, it turns out this is a fire down at Camp Shepherd. They were basically burning some debris and things like that. But it's a blue smoke. It's persistent. We kind of watched it for about 15 minutes and came back, and it's still there. It's not drifting straight up, so it's not a very hot fire, but it still is moving fairly vertically. Well, I said dead giveaway is blue color. Fire or no fire? It's white clouds, kind of. Yeah, that orange stuff along the line of white clouds is kind of a dead giveaway, isn't it? So yeah.
And the actual fire.
Yeah, and the actual fire.
The flames.
Fire or no fire?
Tough to tell right there.
No fire?
Yeah, it's wintertime. There's no fire. There's one of those water dogs. This is the same day, same thing. It's wintertime. Things aren't likely to light up and get a really big fire in the wintertime, guys. So not likely, at least. What do you think? Fire or no fire? Gage says no. Aaron says no. Erica says yes. Some of you guys only have seen this before, so you remember it. So if I waited 15 minutes and I saw this and I watched that, and now I came back 15 minutes later and I see this in the same place, if you notice, all those water dogs have gone away, but that's still there. That's when I was talking about persistence. It turns out that's blue, kind of bluish brown smoke, and we're seeing it in an area. This is over by where the Goat Creek cabins are at. It turns out there was a fire over there. But, again, vertical, it's not colored white, and it's persistent. We're continuing to see it in that same location. So that's all the sort of hints that kind of give you an idea of you're seeing fire there, Aaron. So hopefully that kind of helps you a little bit. By the way, these are fires reported last year. This is 2022. We last year reported 4 fires as well. I don't think anybody that reported a fire last year is on the phone, but you get to see them. You actually get a chance. These were actually reported as the first reports on these fires by our volunteers. So one of the key tools that is used for spotting and reporting forest fires is this tool. It's called the Osborne Firefinder, and it was invented back in the 1900s, early 1900s. The versions we have in the lookouts date from the 1930s, so they're very much antiques and designed to help a fire lookout to gather information and then report this to our dispatcher, in this case, Puget Sound. If you look closely at the Firefinder, it's got a lot of things that it is, but it's not designed to be a place to put your cups, stoves, binoculars, clothing, books, things like that. Don't put things like on top of these. These are very much antiques, and so we care for them. We even have little foam covered boxes that we basically store them in over the wintertime to protect them from getting damaged. The Firefinder is simply a map with a circular azimuth finder on top of it. If you look closely at the center of that Firefinder, that map, guess where? That's where you're at. In this case, this is Kelly Butte. If you look at Suntop Lookout, the Firefinder would have Suntop in the center of that map. As you look around it, this azimuth ring goes all the way around the outside. So if you see a smoke, you can actually move the Osborne sideways a little bit and try to get a good line of sight. You may actually have to open a window or two, and then you can spin the Osborne so the sights line up with the smoke. You sight through the big brass sight on your end, and the front sight has horsehairs on it. We, by the way, don't use horsehair anymore because kids like to poke their fingers in it. So we have a little spool of black thread up there. You can basically, put on the Firefinder. If you look through those sights, that's kind of what it looks like, and that's looking through that brass sight and looking out through the horsehair. There's yours truly doing a fire lookout demonstration inside my living room, looking down through those sights, and you can get a pretty good sense of, is that fire higher than me? Is it lower than me? What's its elevation? As well as then an azimuth. If you look down below where I'm sitting, there's a compass ring all the way around the outside, an azimuth ring. And on that azimuth rings are gradations from 0 to 360 degrees. In this case, you'll see there's 290 degrees, there's 300 degrees, there's 29596. So it looks like this fire is at 296.5 degrees from Kelly Butte Lookout. How do you tell how far away it is? Well, that's a good question. In the old days, particularly when we had a lot of fire lookouts, we would have 2 or more Firefinder equipped lookouts look at that smoke and give their azimuths to our dispatcher, and the azimuths would figure out where those 2 lines of azimuth crossed, and they could tell pretty accurately where that fire was. We can still do that today, where if Kelly Butte spots a smoke, for example, and they think it is somewhere that Suntop could see them, we call Suntop on the radio and say, hey, I'm seeing a smoke that looks like it's kind of almost north of you. Can you see it up there? And which case then Suntop looks around, and if they can see it, we can match those 2 bearings together, and we can then report those 2 bearings and where they intersect, and then tell that to Puget Sound. Puget Sound also has all sorts of tools they can make this all work. These maps that are on the lookout on the Firefinders are Snoqualmie Ranger District maps. They're just like this. They're a combination topographic map. They show all the boundaries. They show the major roads. They show major routes like the railroad line. This is the railroad line that's just north of Kelly Butte in the Green River Valley. There's the little ghost town of Lester, and there's power lines, and you can see there's roads here. There's trails on it. Here's the Kelly Butte Trail that goes down to Lester. So there's lots of information on that map. The topographic lines give us some hints as to what that terrain looks like. And I'm not going to go back and teach you all the topographic map reading from your 5th grade geography class, but usually in the topographic maps, we'll see the tops of mountains that are that are basically marked as being a top of a mountain with an elevation 1825 feet. You'll see trails like this. You'll see valleys where the topographic lines are really far apart. This is a relatively flat place. Green means it's covered with vegetation. White means it has no vegetation on top of it. Sometimes you'll see names on these trails. Sometimes you'll see numbers. If you see the topographic lines that are really close to each other, what that's telling you is that's a really steep area or a cliff area. And so there's a lot of information you can kind of get off these maps that help you. Each inch of that map, each square on that map is approximately equal to 1 mile. And at the same time, on the tape measure that runs on the Osborne Firefinder, approximately each inch on this tape measure equals 1 mile. So if I look at this fire here, compared to where I'm at Kelly Butte, I can count, let's see, 1, 2, 3, that's about 3 inches away from Kelly Butte. That's about 3 miles. Or I could count the little squares, 1, 2, 3, and get an estimate about how far away. So in this case, this fire bears 296.5 degrees from Kelly Butte Lookout, and it's approximately 3 miles away. There you go. So what happens if you can't see the fire because it's behind trees, something like that? Inside each one of the lookout bags, we also have some other tools. There are some compasses inside these bags. These are really good, highly accurate compasses. There's binoculars, there's a map. And so we can take these other tools and use them to locate that fire. I would simply go out to a place I could actually see that fire with the compass. I would then point the compass at that fire, and using this little bezel, this is what this round thing is called, I'll spin the bezel around until the red arrow and the red needle line up on each other. And then I can read the azimuth. In this case, I'm going to read it off the top of which direction that fire is from me. And then, of course, the estimating of distance. It's a little tougher in this case, but I would have to use my knowledge of the terrain and things I'm reading off the map to figure out where it's at. Well, it looks like it's about 3 ridge lines away. You know, that kind of gives me an idea of where I think it might be. If we can get the fire crews within a mile or two of a fire, then that's pretty good. They're going to be able to find it from there. So here's a challenge. So where is this fire at? If you're at Echo Lake here, and there's a fire spotted or smoke spotted up here, how would you describe where that's at? Anybody want to take a guess here? What's your easiest way to describe where it's at?
It's southeast, like a mile and a half, 2 miles.
Excellent. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Southeast of Echo Lake, a couple miles. Okay, that looks pretty good. What are some other hints we can get without even pulling out the compass and doing anything else? It's in the North Peak Wilderness, would you say? Okay. What else might be some hints or some what are some things you see on this map that are pretty handy that might help you describe where a fire is?
The county line.
County line.
County line, that's good. What's this red line here though? What's this red line? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
It's a trail?
It's a trail, but what sort of trail is it? All the other trails are black. Why is this one red?
It's a forest road,
No,
maybe.
it's a pretty significant trail. What's probably one of the most famous trails in Washington State?
PCT.
The Pacific Crest Trail. There you go. This is it. This is the Pacific Crest Trail. So this fire is southeast of Echo Lake in the North Peak Wilderness up near the Pacific Crest Trail. Okay. What are some other things that would help us tell somebody where this fire might be? What's it? What else is it near?
Is that near a mountaintop there?
Yeah, it's near the top of the crest. It's near the top of the Cascade Crest, so it's near the top of the ridge. This is the Arch Rock Trail. You can't see it on your screen, but this is basically the top of the Arch Rock Trail. So it looks like it's up near where the Arch Rock Trail comes into the Pacific Crest Trail. You got a pretty big prominent peak here called Arch Rock. That's pretty obvious. So it's south of Arch Rock. southeast of Echo Lake, near the Pacific Crest Trail, near the top of the Arch Rock Trail. So all are good things I could do. I could also pull my compass out and take a compass bearing. And if I take the compass bearing, it says it's 150 degrees. I can use the topographic lines. And again, you probably can't see it at home, but the topographic lines will tell me this fire is about 5,500 feet in elevation based on the topographic marks here. How far is it? Well, I got a scale at the bottom of the map, and if I use my magic fingers as a caliper, I can basically say, yeah, it's about this far. Okay, that's about 2 miles. It's about 2 miles for Echo Lake. Okay, is that enough? That's actually probably enough for a fire crew to figure out. They're going to go in and probably actually be inserted by helicopter, and they're not going to drop directly on a fire, but it gives enough information to Puget Sound to get them started. Okay. Also on these maps is some pretty handy things to describe where things are at. Latitude and longitude. And you guys remember from your 5th grade geography class, what's latitude? It's a distance from the equator getting greater as it goes northwards. And longitude is a distance from the prime meridian, which is happens to be in Greenwich, England, for some unknown reason. Don't ask me to explain all that. Anyway, westbound, it gets larger. And of course, it gets larger going eastbound as well until you get to the international date line. Here, we're in the westbound area. If you look at this fire, how would I describe where it's at? Well, if this blue line here is 47 degrees north latitude, and this blue line is 47 degrees, 5 minutes and 0 seconds north latitude, well, that looks like it's about 47 degrees, 1 minute north. If I'm looking west, 121, 2130s here. That looks like that's probably about 121, 22 minutes west. Again, close enough. If I get within a mile, that's enough for the fire crews to be able to get there. So take some time when you're up there and you're looking at these, your maps, and you're looking what's in your lookout bag, pull these maps out. Start familiarizing yourself with where do I find the latitude lines? Where do I find the longitude lines? You know, where's the scale, this distance scale at? How would I actually use these tools? A few things to think about reporting fires. We do not use 911 to report fires. Fires are not emergencies. Don't use 911. We had volunteers last year use 911. They couldn't reach Puget Sound, and they called 911 on a fire. And it turned out what they reported as a fire was people working on the top of the gondola at Crystal Mountain. Okay, so yeah, don't do that, please. As it turned out, I got a call from a lieutenant in the Greenwater Fire Department who called and talked to me, and I convinced him not to call out his troops, but instead to go out and investigate, and that's what he found out. As you're seeing a smoke or what you think is a smoke, we're going to take the time to fill out the smoke report. That's the next slide we're going to show you. And if you don't know what an answer is, just leave it blank for now. We'll come back to that, or we'll say, I don't know, or it's not
Carter,
applicable.
go get your laundry and fold it, please.
Okay. We're going to get on the radio at that point. We're going to say, Puget Sound, this is hearing on Suntop. I have a smoke or fire report. And then they're going to tell you when they're ready to copy. They're going to basically, pull up a sheet on their computer, and they're just going to start filling in the blanks. And then you literally just read the report to them. So this is what that smoke or fire report looks like. There's going to, again, be blanks in there in the lookout bag that you can fill it in. Station or personal reporting, time report, all sorts of information. Some of which you may not know, in which case you're going to put unknown. Some of which you may be able to tell, and some of which you may not determine right now, but it may be something you figure out later on. So you'll basically go back and add to that information later on. This is a filled out one, and you'll literally just report it. Puget Sound, making my smoke and fire report. Station reporting, John Doe. Time of report, 1400. Estimated location of fire from the lookout, 096 degrees, approximately 3 miles. Latitude, 47 degrees, 10.5 minutes north. Longitude, 122 degrees, 25.5 minutes west. Approximately 2 miles up Forest Road 7036 from Forest Road 7030. Estimated elevation, again, things you can't tell. If you don't know, just tell them unknown. Slope of fire, unknown. Aspect of fire, That means kind of which way is it facing? It's facing west. Slope position, flame length. We're not going to see flame length from the lookouts. It's unlikely you're going to see them. Color of smoke, gray, dark brown, black. Anything you can't fill in, you're just going to say unknown. Again, you may go back later on and tell them extra. So it's important to give them as much information as you can and take a few minutes out extra to fill this report out, because this helps them figure out what sort of resources do they need to send. That fire that we saw on the way up to Kelly Butte last year, I would have guessed that was maybe, an acre or two. It was more like 5. It was much bigger than we thought. And so as it turned out, they sent a couple of fire crews there to go and put that one out. The more we saw it, the more we started figuring out, the more information we can provide them, the better their response can be. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to give them enough information to make a good response. When in doubt, think about it, and you can even call. So firefighting, one of the key reasons for establishing lookouts, one of our key reasons for our existence today, despite the advent of satellites and helicopters and airplanes and stuff like that, we still spot fires, and we'll quite often every year be the first people to report them. So time is not of the essence. I know it's so counter to what we're used to. Reporting fires, at least out in the woods, is not an emergency. We don't use 911. We want to look for clues that are going to indicate a fire. Vertical, blue, brown, or black or gray smoke. Rarely is this fire going to be white or wispy. And persistent. Fires are persistent. So we want to use our tools to find out where the fires are at, and then use that smoke and fire report form to gather as much information as we can, and then report to Puget Sound and call them back again if we need to add more information later on. Okay, questions about reporting fires? Everybody okay with this? You want to give me a thumbs up and tell me you're okay? Otherwise, I wonder whether all my sound has dropped out and nobody can hear me. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so let's take a break. We'll be on it. So let's come back at 8 o'clock and we will wrap this up. Okay. I'm going to go on. Okay. So let's talk about our last section here, which is communication. So, what's our number 2 job? If our number 1 job is to represent the Forest Service, the number 2 job is stay in communication. Nobody wants a volunteer that gets lost out in the woods. That would just be terrible. It would suck. And the paperwork would be a nightmare. So we ask you to stay in communication with radios, with cell phones. Some people have ham radio licenses. I have a ham radio license. With a Garmin InReach or whatever tools you got, keep communicating, keep an ability to talk to other people if you need to. We provide you with a Forest Service radio when you're on duty. This is that beautiful Bendix King BK radio. We call them brick because it weighs kind of like a brick. So, but I kind of as a note, these radios are to be used only for official business. These are really, they're a tool, and everybody listens to it. When I talk on this radio, I can talk here and they can hear me all the way up to the Canadian border through the magic of radio. It's all the bosses listening to it. And so, as you're talking, other people are going to hear it. And so just kind of keep that in mind. If you use the radio well, people will notice. If you use the radio badly, people will notice. Trust me. Puget Sound that I've talked about up till now is what we call the Puget Sound Interagency Communication Center, or PSIC, or their call sign is Puget Sound. And what they do is they provide dispatch, they provide radio, relay, reporting, tracking of everybody, Forest Service personnel, volunteers, fire assets. They do this for the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. They do it for the state of Washington. They do it for the Olympic National Forest, for Olympic National Park, and a lot of other groups. They can send minor levels of help to major levels of help. They can go all the way from paramedics down to, I need a tow truck because my battery's dead. They can help you out with a lot of that stuff. They can dispatch search and rescue. Their call sign is Puget Sound. What they do is they track everything that's going on in the forest. Each person or a team, they track them where they're at, when they last checked in, what they're doing, when they expect to be done doing it, when they expect to be home. And that's their primary purpose. If you want to think about it, it's a big center with lots of computers, and they've got electronic whiteboards. And so when you call in and say, I'm going on duty, they can basically say, oh, I recognize that person. That is Al Clark. He is an SFLA volunteer because they've got your name on a roster. He is going to be patrolling on Greenwater Trail. So then they activate Al Clark and they say he's on Greenwater Trail. He's got 3 people with him and he expects to be back around 6 p.m. And so now they're tracking you. Now, what happens if you don't check back in? When you don't check back in, they're going to start looking for you. They're going to look for you electronically. They're going to start by trying to call you on the radio. If they don't get an answer from you on the radio, they're going to call your emergency contact on your sheet of paper that you turn in your application. By the way, that might be your spouse. Okay, that could be kind of bad. They can't reach that person, they will call your supervisor. That's going to be me or Valerie or Mary Burrows. And they're going to basically say, we have a volunteer that was out patrolling on Greenwater Trail and they haven't checked back in. Al, you're a bad boy. You didn't check in. Anyway, in which case then we're going to probably say, when was the last person who saw this person? We're going to go check the whiteboard and see if that person, did he sign out on the whiteboard? Where did he say he's at? What vehicle is he driving? We may drive out to that trailhead to see what's going on. If we don't find anything, then we'll basically call Puget Sound and say, we're going to need to launch search and rescue. And we'll start a search and rescue mission. Nothing more embarrassing to basically have a search and rescue mission called out on you because you didn't bother to tell us that you would come back home. Okay, sorry, don't do that, please. That's really bad. Puget Sound is reachable by phone or by radio. They are a 7-day-a-week operation, 24 hours a day by phone. They're on the radio from 7:30 to 6 p.m. 7 days a week now, and they'll go after Labor Day. They go down to 8 to 4 Monday through Friday, but they're always available by phone. You can call the phone number that's listed in the front of the volunteer handbook, or it's on the top of all of the important, like your trail reports or your medical incident or your fire reports. That phone number is at the top of that. The radios we have are called handy talkies, or sometimes hear them called HT radios. This is one. It's very similar. Said pretty old tech, but pretty solid. It's got some things on it. It's got a little switch here at the top. You'll see this is the on-off switch. When you turn it on, it makes a happy little beep. That tells you it's happy, okay? Right next to that switch is a squelch button. The squelch is basically what keeps the static out. And if I turn the radio on, I'll turn the squelch up and down a little bit, and that's basically trying to make that extra static go away. That's what we're trying to make that static disappear. I don't want to turn the squelch all the way down because then I won't hear anything. So I want that squelch to be just adjusted just a little bit here. Just make that squelch, make that static go away. On the side of it, right here is a push to talk button. If I want to talk to somebody, I have to hold that button down and then I have to let go of it. In the front is a little display that says groups and channels. And as I change the channel button here on the top, it basically can change the channel as to what channel it's talking on and what repeater it's going to be talking about. We're going to talk about repeaters in a minute. And then there's the batteries. The batteries are on the bottom. There's a little switch right here, a little metal thing. You can probably see it. I'm putting my finger on it right now. If I push that up, I can turn this battery pack sideways. You can kind of see it's almost kind of kitty corner a little bit. And now I can take the battery pack off. We have 2 different types of battery packs. We are trying to go to a rechargeable battery pack that looks like this. Okay. It's most of them are, in fact, all of them are black. Okay. They basically have no way to open them up. That's a solid radio back. And so it's pretty easy to twist off. Same thing with putting it back on. It goes on the bottom at a little bit of an angle here. And then I can just twist it and it goes back into place and it turns back on again. Okay. At the same time, we sometimes use what we call a clamshell. This is a clamshell, and a clamshell is literally just a holder for 9-volt battery, 9 AAA batteries. If I push on this center black thing here, I can pop it apart, and it comes apart like this. And now you can see inside, that's where I'd put 9 AA batteries. That's why in the packing list, it says bring extra AA batteries. The reason why is if your rechargeable battery, for whatever reason, has gone stupid, by using the clamshell, you can basically keep in communication. So that's the trick. That's the trick behind that. When you're done replacing your batteries, it's got this little handy guide in, by the way, that shows how the battery should go in. You basically put this thing back together again. It only goes together one way, snaps in place. If you try to do it the other way, it won't. And then the same way, if I go to put it on the radio, it's only going to go on the radio in one fashion. It cannot go on the other direction. It simply won't work. I can't lock in place. It won't happen. So put this back on here. Come on. Okay. So how do we use this? Well, it's pretty easy. Start, turn this little on-off switch on right here, and I press that button. It basically turn it clockwise. I hear the happy little beep. I turn that squelch button clockwise until I hear static. And then I'm going to turn it just enough counterclockwise until the static just disappears. By the way, if you turn that all the way up and you don't hear any squelch at all, it tells me your battery's weak. Your batteries are dead and you need to change batteries out. Okay. There's a channel button again on the front. You want to use your channel selector here. Number 3. And that's going to basically, you're going to select whatever repeater you're on. We're going to talk about the repeaters in just a minute. Suntop, Kelly Butte, Grass Mountain, Ptolemy, whichever one's appropriate. There's some switches on the top. We want to use this switch called low. That's low power. That saves battery life. We want to take the scan and off and the pry that's off. You know, don't worry about what they are. It doesn't matter. They just consume batteries and we don't really want to use them. So, okay. Come on. These radios work by line of sight primarily, okay? They transmit line of sight, and the radio transmission, the place all the energy is coming from is right here in the very top of this little antenna. That's where that energy is coming from, okay? So when we want to talk to somebody, we really have to be in a line of sight. We have to be able to see them or at least have a straight line between us. You know, they'll go through mountains a little bit, they'll go through trees a little bit, but too many things get in the way, they don't work very well. By the way, this radio works the best if you hold it straight up and down. I know they show you on TV and, you know, the cops do this and they do stuff like this. Yeah, don't do that. Just hold this radio straight up and down with that antenna as clear as possible and you'll do fine. Come on. There you go. We use repeaters to try to actually extend these radios. This radio by itself is good for about 10 miles, but with a repeater, I can transmit from my radio to this box in the up somewhere high called a repeater. And what it does is it boosts my signal and it basically extends how far it's going to go. When I transmit from this radio, I'm transmitting about 5 watts. When it goes to the repeater is going to take that 5-watt transmission. It's going to multiply it by 10 times. And so it's going to be 10 times as strong, and it's going from a much higher location. It's going to work better as well. You'll find those repeaters in really high spots in the national forest, such as, drum roll, inside the attics of the fire lookouts. So inside each one of these fire lookouts, if you poked your head up in the attic, you would see a little box like this thing down here. And the box hooks up to an antenna that's also in the attic. This thing on top is, by the way, that's a lightning rod. That's not the antenna. Okay. And it picks up those signals and it transmits them to Puget Sound or to another unit that you're talking to. Sometimes, by the way, if the techs have been up there, they'll leave the volume on a little bit and you can hear whispering in the attic. When kids come up, I'll just tell them that's a ghost and they get all freaked out about that. So these repeaters are placed in pretty strategic locations around the district that make it so we can hit a good repeater. It kind of depends on where you're at. You know, obviously you're close to Suntop. If you're actually on duty at Suntop, you want to use Suntop repeater. If you're over by Kelly Butte, you want to use Kelly Butte repeater. Sometimes you'll be like on the road to Kelly Butte and you can't actually see the Kelly Butte repeater. So you'd be talking to Grass Mountain. If you go up to the trailhead at Kelly Butte, it's kind of weird. If you start going up the trail at Kelly Butte, you can't actually see the Kelly Butte repeater anymore. So you might actually be talking on the Suntop repeater at that point. So the easy test is as you're working this radio, if I press the transmit button for just a second, I hear a beep back. What that tells me is I'm actually talking to a repeater that works. that's actually gotten transmission. And if I don't hear anything, that tells me I'm on a channel that I can't hear anything. I'm not reaching that repeater. So I need to change my location or change which repeater I'm trying to talk on. Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest has divided stuff up into groups. We are generally group 8, and group 8 is the 410 corridor. And it includes all these repeaters you see here: Grass Mountain, Rattlesnake, Suntop, Crystal Mountain, Kelly Butte, Little Bald, which is over in Eastern Washington. And then you got some other special channels. These special channels are kind of unique. Some of them are repeated, like DNR is the Department of Natural Resources. That's the state channel. Mount Rainier National Park is when you talk to the national park folks. 3 of these are what we call tactical channels. And basically they are channels that don't use repeaters. So Project, Forest Service Tactical, and Fire Tactical are where somebody might call you and say, I want to talk directly to you, but I don't want to have to go through a repeater. And so they may call you and say, hearing, can you meet me on project? And you'll say, copy, I'll meet you on project. And then I will turn my radio and I'll turn until it says project. And I'll say, this is hearing on project, go ahead. And we'll have a discussion, we'll talk. Quite often using that when I'm talking to a fire crew, or if we're talking to our guys that are basically the law enforcement guys too. Radio etiquette's really important, okay? These radios are professional. And again, we're kind of judged by how we use them. So we want to be thinking about clear, concise, and complete transmissions. Our communications have to be clear, concise, and complete. Your call sign is your name. It's not the fire lookout you're at, okay? Your name is your call sign. Some of you may, it's a little bit of a change for some of you guys that did lookout stuff way back in the old days. We really tried to get standardized using your call sign. My call sign is hearing. Al Clark's call sign might be Clark. Oh, wait a minute. We got Jeremy Clark now too. So he may now have his call sign saying, this is Al Clark. That kind of distinguishes him. I've got Lisa Hearing McDonald on here. And so sometimes if I know she's out, I will identify myself. This is John Hearing as opposed to Lisa Hearing, although they should be able to tell the difference between the two of us. Same thing with Andrea and Erica. You may have to use your first name as well as your last name to make sure they know they've got the right volunteer. Think about your message. Think about what you're going to say. Some of the volunteers actually write it all down. We have some radio scripts that are in the handbook that kind of help guide you in some common circumstances, common situations, but it's okay to write your plan down as to what you're going to say. And then once I've said that, I report the facts. I only want to talk facts. I see this smoke. I have heard there is smoke at, okay? I want to make sure that I'm telling them what's factual and what's true versus what I maybe think, okay? Keep your messages brief. If you have to make a long message, you want to stop. You may stop in the middle of it and you say break, and then I'm going to let go of the transmit button. Why is that? Because somebody else may be trying to get in and they might have something really important like a medical emergency. And so I want to take a break there and let somebody else get in there. And then I will keep transmitting and continue finishing my message once I've done that. How do you use the radio itself? I hold the radio across my face like this at about 2 inches away. I'm talking across this. The microphone and the speaker and everything else at the top. I've seen volunteers do this. That's not this word. This doesn't work like a phone, guys. This is basically microphone and transmitter and speaker all right here in the top, okay? I press the push to talk button. I hold that button down for 1 to 2 seconds. It takes it that long for the repeater to sync up to my radio, and then I start talking. As soon as I stop talking, I let go of that button, and it's going to go beep, beep. It basically says, okay, the repeater did its job there. Speak clearly, speak normal conversational level. I don't want to speak really loud. I don't need to yell. I don't want to talk too fast. I don't want to be around a lot of excessive noise. If I got a lot of people chattering and chatting next to me, I might ask them to be quiet, or I might have to move away from them. I might have to move out of the wind if I got a lot of wind noise. And I only want to do essential messages. We don't do radio checks. We don't need to use radio checks. The one thing I would tell you is I will quite often turn my radio on before I leave the Enumclaw office to tell whether or not the battery is good or not, and press that button once, Again, just making sure that it's actually talking to a repeater, and then I'll turn it back off, and then I'll be ready to go. Okay. Your first part about a call is about getting their attention. And this is the basic script. Who you are calling, this is who is calling me on what repeater I'm using. This is pretty important because I remember I talked about Puget Sound and they're monitoring 30 repeaters simultaneously. They got repeaters all across Washington State, as well as, up in the Olympics. And so they got lots of repeaters. If they just happen to be looking at the board lights up and says, this is the repeater that's calling you. If they're not looking at it because they've turned their head away and you call them, they don't necessarily know what repeater called them. So basically, that's why you're trying to tell them, I am on Grass Mountain repeater. They can then reach up and push the button that says Grass Mountain. And what they do is then they can talk to you directly. They're talking directly to Grass Mountain, and then Grass Mountain's talking to you. So you get a much better connection. Puget Sound, this is hearing on Grass Mountain. Who I'm calling, who I am, what repeater I'm using. And then once I've made that call, they should respond. They may say, this is Puget Sound, go ahead. They might say just Puget Sound. Effectively, what they're doing is they're saying, I'm with you, I'm ready to talk to you. You don't have to repeat your call sign. You don't have to repeat what repeater you're on. They should know now. Then you just go ahead and send your message. I am at Kelly Butte Trailhead. I am en route to Kelly Butte Lookout with a party of 3. Okay, that's my message. They'll come back and say, copy, time 1456. If it's a complex message, they may repeat the message back. Sometimes they'll repeat it back and it may not be correct, in which case you'll have to go back and correct them. If they don't repeat it back, then you'll have to assume they got it right. They do have an ability, they can record everything and they can push a button and basically replay the recording if they didn't understand it. They may come back and ask for clarification. If they've got it right, they'll say copy, time 1446, and then you'll come back and say hearing clear. What that means is I'm staying on the channel. I'm not going away. I'm continuing to monitor this channel. You don't say out, because what that means is I'm turning my radio off and I'm not ever going to talk to you ever, ever, ever. That's kind of what we do. So hearing clear. This might be a typical conversation you're going to have. Hold your transmit button sound. Puget Sound, this is Smith on Suntop. Smith, this is Puget Sound. Puget Sound, Smith +2 have arrived at Suntop Lookout. Copy, Smith +2 have arrived at Suntop Lookout, time 1428. Affirmative, Smith clear. Okay, pretty straightforward. We just had a really good, succinct, concise conversation, and I basically transmitted the really important information to them. All right, so now you're going to get a chance to practice. Looking for a volunteer. So I'm going to play like I'm Puget Sound. You're going to play like you're the volunteer and you're having to hold this radio and do all these things I just said. And I need you to tell me you have arrived at Kelly Butte Trailhead and are en route to the lookout, but you have to use Suntop repeater because you can't reach the Kelly Butte repeater right now. So somebody want to take a crack at this? Maybe one of you old experienced guys?
Yeah, I can do it.
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Oh, go for it.
All right, Lawrence, turned it to you, Craig.
Oh, I would say this is Samples at Kelly Butte.
Okay. Except for you haven't made your contact. Remember who you're calling.
Oh yeah, Puget Sound.
Who you are and what repeater you're talking on.
Oh, so this is Samples on Suntop at Kelly Butte Trailhead.
Okay. Make your contact first. Puget Sound, this is Samples on Suntop. Okay. And then I'll come back and say, yeah, I'm listening to you.
And I would say this is Samples on Suntop heading up to Kelly Butte from the trailhead.
Copy. En route to Kelly Butte Lookout from the trailhead, time 1425. Okay.
Samples copies.
Okay. So then samples clear. That's what you want to say. Okay.
Oh,
you're all done
gotcha.
talking.
Yep.
All right. Good job, Cragen. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you know which repeater you're on? It's on your radio, it says right there.
It's on the little window right here in front of your radio, right here. It tells you what repeater
Okay.
you're on. And the map that's inside your handbook gives you an idea of given where you're at, this is what repeater you probably should be talking about. But the ultimate test is if I can push the button and I hear that sound back, that means that repeater is working. In this case, that's the rattlesnake repeater that I'm talking to right now. Okay, it's working.
And it might change as you walk in, like say to Kelly's Butte, because you'll have better reception or clear
It
sight.
absolutely will. So as you get to the top of the
Okay.
trail at Kelly Butte, and now you're across the top of the meadows up there. At that point, you can start to see the lookout tower itself, and so you'd want to then switch your channel over to from Suntop. You switch it over to Kelly Butte. Just remember, when you then call Puget Sound when you arrive at the lookout, you're going to want to tell them, this is Grant on Kelly Butte. You're going to tell them a different repeater you're talking to them. You're always telling them what's showing up on the front little window of your radio.
Yes.
That's what you're telling them.
Okay, not where I am, really.
Not where you're at. What repeater you're talking about. Okay.
Repeater. Thank
Yeah. So here's a different one. You've arrived at Suntop and the lookout is now in service. You're using the Suntop repeater. Anybody else? Somebody want to take this one on?
I want to try that one.
Okay, Miranda, go ahead.
Puget Sound, this is Hinkle on Suntop repeater.
Okay. This is Puget Sound. Go ahead.
Hinkle in service at Suntop.
Copy. Hinkle's in service at Suntop. Time 12:32.
Hinkle clear.
Okay. Very good. That's it. That's all there is to it. And now Puget Sound will have typed that information onto the little whiteboard. They know that Hinkle, a volunteer, is at the lookout, and she's going to be up there. Now about 5:30 p.m. they're going to be calling her back and saying, so what are you doing for the night? You're going to be staying up there, or what's your plan for the night? So they may come back and ask you for more information at that point. So good job. Way to go, Miranda. Okay. How about this one? You're going to be spending the night at Kelly Butte. You're on the Kelly Butte repeater. This is like 5:30 p.m.
I can take it.
Okay, Carly.
Puget Sound, this is Magnuson on Kelly Butte.
This is Puget Sound.
I will be spending the night at Kelly Butte, going out of service at this time.
Copy. You'll be spending the night at Suntop lookout, going out of service at this time.
Magnuson clear.
She missed something.
Oh.
What did I say? Anybody?
Oh, you said Suntop. No,
I said Suntop. Yeah.
I'm overnighting at Kelly Butte.
Yeah. So that's when you'll go back and say, correction, I will be spending the night at Kelly Butte lookout. Yeah. So I just want to listen back to what Puget Sound says, because sometimes they'll sneak one in on the air and they'll screw it up. So all right. How about this one? You've come across an auto accident on Forest Road 7315. There's people with injuries. Now, you can't reach the Suntop repeater. You got to talk on Grass Mountain. So we want to take this one on?
I'll do it.
Okay, Vera.
Puget Sound, this is Grant on Grass Mountain repeater.
This is Puget Sound. Go ahead.
I see a car accident with injuries on Forest Road 7315 on a Suntop Road.
Copy. We hear an auto accident with injuries on Forest Road 7315. Can you tell us how many injured persons there are?
I see one driver and one passengers, both adults, both alert.
Copy. Two adults, both alert. We will be contacting Greenwater Fire to respond, keep us advised, and provide additional information when you can.
Grant clear.
Okay, excellent. That was really well done, Vera. Okay, that's one of those things where there actually is a trick too. When you have something like that, and this is not a fire report, this is basically if you have a law enforcement problem or a medical problem like this, you may want to add on to your radio call emergency traffic. This is hearing with emergency traffic on Grass Mountain repeater. What that does is suddenly everybody at Puget Sound drops everything and starts paying attention to you. Otherwise, they basically they might be taking a, shift report, or, somebody's basically requesting a tow truck or whatever at another location. This basically gets their focus on you. Same way with the smoke report. I tell them up front, I have a smoke report, kind of gets them, okay, I'm now kind of primed to talk to you. So excellent job, guys. So real quick troubleshooting, if your radio doesn't work, wait a minute and try again. Don't call 5 seconds later. They might be busy doing something else. Try changing location. Maybe they're not hearing you very clearly. Most time, if they are not hearing you clearly, they may come back and say, station calling, you're broken, try again. In which case, change your location. By the way, I never try to use the radio inside my car. My car does a really great job of basically, filtering out these radio waves coming out the end of the antenna. And so I actually have to always get out of my car to talk. So that's just my truck blocks the transmissions. Make sure your radio is turned on. The volume control is up. I mean, if you turn your radio on, but you don't turn the volume up like that, I've got the squelch all the way up and I can't hear anything. Okay. Same thing. If I've got the squelch turned all the way down, I can have the volume all the way up and I can't hear anything that's going to come across this radio. Okay. There's no sound going to come across the radio. So make sure the antenna is connected snugly. Some people actually unscrew the antenna. We don't really want you to do that. By the way, don't ever operate the radio without an antenna. It basically burns the inside of the radio up, and that'll be the end of it. Check your batteries. Make sure your batteries are recharged up. Make sure if you're using a clamshell, all the batteries are in the right direction, then the connections are tight. Now we're doing something slightly different. We tested out last year at Suntop. We're going to do it this year at Kelly Butte. We have built solar powered recharging systems. And so instead of using the clamshell all the time, which is what we used to do, instead we're using these rechargeable batteries. And so when you get to the lookout, you're going to take your radio and you're going to drop it right in the charger, right there in the desk. And so the whole time you're at the lookout, you basically can leave this radio sitting there in the charger and it's going to charge up and be nice and fully charged for you. If you go outside the lookout to go to the bathroom, to take a walk, pick huckleberries or whatever, you take this radio with you. And as soon as you get back to the lookout, you drop this back in the charger and it'll basically make itself smart again. So the rechargeable batteries thing is kind of new. We used to throw away hundreds of batteries. We're trying to stop that this year and get it to the point where we're not adding to the landfill problem. So when in doubt, almost certainly the problems are going to be it's a switch isn't set right or the batteries are weak. Okay. That's when you have problems. Use the radios carefully. Remember, lots of people are listening to you. Our reputation as SFLA, our reputation as volunteers is made an awful lot by how they hear us talk, by what they think of us. And so we actually make a lot of brownie points by talking well on the radios and doing a great job of communicating. Okay. Questions about communications and radios and stuff like that?
I have a question. What channel number is, when we're at Suntop, what channel number is that? Because sometimes I turn the radio off or I go to turn the radio down or something and I end up changing the channel.
Oh, well, I don't know what it is. I think
is it 5?
It depends on the radio too. Some of the radios are set differently. I think
Okay.
right now on this one I've got in front of me, it's like channel 5.
Okay.
Again, it's going to show up in the window with that name. It's not going to show you a channel number.
Okay.
Okay. At the top, no, yeah, channel 5 on the top is Suntop. So
Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah. Okay.
It's in the book though, right?
It's in the book.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Now,
Thank you.
sometimes what will happen is you may actually accidentally change the group. If that's a problem, there's a little radio manual that tells you how to get back to group 8. And don't ask me to tell you right off the top of my head, but I think it's actually *8# or something like that. But again, it's in the book. But you shouldn't have that problem. We don't change the groups very often. Unless some kid has picked it up and basically started pressing little buttons on the front, which does happen. I've had children grab the radio and start pushing buttons and their little fingers, my fingers won't fit in those, but their fingers fit in them. And then we had to reprogram the radio. So, okay. Other questions? No questions about radio.
What's the best way to carry it on your hike?
I stick it in my pack. I'll just stick it in my pack, and I'll stick it in the pack so the antenna is sticking out. I actually have my own radio, and I actually carry it in a chest holster. There is a chest holster for the patrollers for the trail patrol bag. Most people don't use it. It's kind of bulky sitting there pounding you in the chest, and it's kind of a pain. But yeah, I just, if I'm just carrying the BK brick, I'll just stick it in my side pocket of my package with the antenna sticking out. Okay. All right, almost done, guys. So got some admin items to talk about. Don't forget to read or look out. This is the 2022 version. We got a 2024 version out there. It's got the Northern Lights on it. It's pretty spectacular. It's updated. There's a lot of things in there updated. So read it over, look at all the things that are new in there. Look up the stuff about special use permits, refresh yourself on the frequently asked questions, things like that. The website, we're trying to do a better job of keeping this up to date with news, events, calendar, stuff like that. Keep it there. Andrea, go ahead, or Erica.
Could you give us a brief summary of some of the highlights you want to make sure we don't miss that are updated?
In there, like I said, special use permits. There's a whole section now about special use permits in there that wasn't there before. We've updated all the contact information in the front. That's all changed because a lot of new people have, we have a new corridor managers and people like that. You'll find we added in a little bit more information in dealing with the public, trying to not, not emphasize the negative as much as basically, how do we keep this as a positive? We added in some new frequently asked questions because we always get frequently asked questions. So those are the biggies. And then we added in a lot of stuff about trail patrol that was not there before. We're actually going to build a separate book on trail patrolling, and we'll probably actually separate the two books. As trail patrol has a little different, risk management, things like that are just slightly different.
Thank you.
Okay. Some resources. We have a YouTube channel out there. It's got some great videos on there. There's a video on there about how to use the radios. There's a video on the how to use the Osborne Firefinder, another video on how to talk to the public. We got another one, which I'm working on, which is going to basically be how do you actually determine the location and report fires and smokes, and how to use that smoke report. We'll talk about that. We got another one we're going to work on shortly. I'm looking for some volunteers to talk about how to de-escalate things. How do you de-escalate problems? Not that, again, we have that very common, but we have our Google site. Particularly, we have what we call the membership share drive. You see it right there in the middle of your screen. Every one of you should have been invited when you join the SFLA. If you're not in there, make sure you email us and we'll send you the link. In there is just about everything. Kelly Butte questions, some top questions, your volunteer roster, your contact. Once it's filled out, we'll put the calendar, or updated calendar will be up there. You'll see what's called the operations log, which is basically what have people been saying from before. What's kind of a passed down log, etc. You'll see copies of the handbook. You'll see another file there. You'll see at the top it says training 2022. Well, now it says training 2024. There's a copy of this video that'll be in there too. The handbook is in there. Lots of resources. All the videos we just talked about that are also on YouTube are also in here as well. And that's the web address you see there on the bottom. If you want to, copy that web address down, you can take a screenshot of it, or again, send us an email, or somebody can put it in the chat window as well. That would be kind of handy too. Some dates to remember. This Saturday, June 1st, National Trails Day. We're looking for everybody to come out that can. 8:30 in the morning, we're going to meet out the Seed Orchard out by Greenwater, and we're going to go out and do some trail work, particularly wearing our SFLA shirts. This is a chance for us to kind of highlight, who we are and what we do, and some of the great work we do for the forest. We'll have some Forest Service people out there helping us. There's a lot of opportunities here for us. So, first week of June. Next week, we will start doing the lookout shift drawing. Make sure you've got your dates in. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then we'll start reporting out. This is what the calendar looks like, and we'll start filling in the blanks on that. On Saturday, June 29th, we're going to have our pre-season field trip to Suntop. If you've never done lookout duty before, even if you're a returning lookout and you haven't done it in a while, we certainly would encourage you to come on out and do that. We're going to go up to Suntop. We're going to open the shutters up. We'll basically be able to see what things look like inside. You'll see the firefinder. You can check out the toilet. You can figure out how the gate lock works. things like that. There's a lot of good opportunities there. If you can't make that, but you still want to go up with somebody, give us a shout. We'll try to make sure that somebody else can go up with you. On that same date, maybe we're going to actually open up Suntop. Actually, we're certainly going to open Suntop. We may open up Kelly Butte that same day. Much depends on the availability of people to haul the firefinder and the trauma bag and all the rest of the stuff up to the lookout. So lookout shifts. Now that you've done the training, you basically are a trained person. You can go ahead and put your lookout shift request in. There's a link there at the bottom. We've sent that link out many times. We can send it out again. And what happens is you put your lookout shift request in, and what we will do is we go through and assign a random number to each person, and then we start with the lowest number, and we try to give that person their first choice for one shift, 24 or 48 hours, and then we go to the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person. For each one of your entries, make sure you put down what dates you want and what lookout you want to work out, or either one if you don't care. All right. This way, everybody gets a fair shot of getting the staff to look out at least once per season. And then once we get to the bottom of the list, we'll go back to the top, and they're going to work our way down. Then we're going to go back to the top of the list and work our way down. And then once we get through about 3 rounds, we get tired of doing this, and then we'll basically say, okay, it's open season. Anybody can just, tell us what dates you'd want to do. Here's what's left on the calendar that's open. Throw your name out there. We ask you to only take shifts that you're really going to use. Don't sign up for 6 or 7 or 8 shifts, because we quite often find people just can't do that many during the summertime. They get too busy. It also denies other people that join later on a chance to actually take a shift. So if you need a t-shirt, if you're first year, you get a freebie. We have V-neck or crew neck. They will be a cotton poly mix if they're V-neck, and they're going to be a quick dry t-shirt if they're a crew neck. There's women's and men's sizes. Yes, my t-shirt ordering has gotten much more complex as they used to be. If you need a shirt, there's a link online also. You can fill that link in, and we will order you a shirt. I think if you need another shirt, you want us to buy you another shirt, we'll get you another shirt. If you're like a returning person, I think the price is going to run about $18, $16 to $18, depending on how many shirts and what type are ordered. So, okay. If you want to do non-lookout volunteering, well, we talked about trail patrols. We're always looking for help at the Enumclaw office on Saturday mornings. Carrie Schwab is organizing that. If you want to go help at the Enumclaw office, that's great. We're looking for maintenance work. We've got some maintenance project to work on. This year, we're going to rebuild the shed up at Suntop. We're going to basically be putting in our water tanks up there, which are basically wine barrels. So they'll kind of, at least somewhat natural. And no, there's not going to be wine in. There's going to be heavily chlorinated water. If you really want to, volunteer in another fashion, you got another idea, like sitting at a trailhead with an information table, always looking for that. So let us know if you want to serve, looking for other volunteers. So, okay. You guys ready? We're going to do a little test here. So what I really want you to do is training trivia. Keep track of how many you get right. Okay. Keep track of how many you get right. This is competitive. Don't just blurt your answer out. Okay. Don't give your answer up to anybody else. All right. You ready? Here we go. First question. What item should be wiped down with a disinfecting wipe before and after use? There's a couple answers to this one. How about the radio, the binoculars, and the keys? All right. How about second question here? True or false? When lightning is a mile or more from the lookout, it's best not to use the radio unless absolutely necessary. Anybody want to venture out there? Anybody? True.
True.
Yep. All right. Question 3. Name 2 things not allowed inside the lookouts. How about dogs, wacky tobacco, alcohol, guns, drugs, mice? Yeah, okay. There we go. Okay. All right.
Nice.
Okay. If you can't make your assigned volunteer day, you should provide at least this much notice to the calendar coordinator. Anybody?
48 hours.
24 hours. 24 hours. Okay. All right. True or false? If your first radio call doesn't get an answer, you should wait 5 seconds and call again. Anybody?
False.
True.
False. Yeah. How long should you wait? Anybody
A minute?
remember? About a minute. Yeah. Remember, they're talking to lots of people, and they may be talking to somebody all the way over in Olympic, and they're not listening to you because they got something more important going on there. One of the expectations for an SFL volunteer is to serve as the blank face of the Forest Service. Anybody?
Friendly.
Friendly. Excellent. Good job. True or false? You should leave the lookout doors unlocked when you leave for the day to make it easier for the next person to access the lookout. False. Yeah, that's a false. Okay. Which of these items is not found in the lookouts? Firefinder, American flag, squeegee for the windows, bunk bed, Forest Service flag. Anybody want to take a guess here? Erica says bunk bed.
American.
No,
Forest flag.
Forest Service flag. We have American flags up there. Yeah, no Forest Service flag. Okay. When you're on lookout, whether on lookout duty to maintenance, how often should you scan for smokes?
Every 2 hours.
About every 2 hours. Yep. Okay. Yeah. True or false? The gate at Suntop may be left open if you leave. When you leave, if you expect the next volunteer to be up shortly after you.
False.
False.
False. Yep. False. Yeah. We don't leave the gate open at all if there's no person on staff duty up top. Okay. All right. True or false? When high winds threaten, we should close the shutters on the lookouts if they are open.
False.
False. Otherwise, John will curse you as he has to go up there and repair shutters again. Sadly, this happens about once a season. Somebody leaves, decides to be smart and will close the shutters. And so we're trying to make sure people know, don't close the shutters. They can't. All it does is it makes them so they flap, and then it just tears them off the side of the building. Okay. Before heading out on duty, you should tell a friend where you're going, update your life insurance, put information on the volunteer sign-up board behind the ranger station, or all of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above. Excellent. Good job. Okay. All right. All right. Halfway there, guys. True or false? Any fires or smokes you spot should be reported within 5 minutes or less.
False.
False.
False. Time is not of the essence when we're reporting fires. Accuracy is. We care about that. Okay. Which of these is not an indication of a fire? Vertical movement of smoke, blue, brown, or black smoke, white, wispy, or moving sideways or down, persistent smoke. Which of these is not an indication of a fire?
White wispy.
White or wispy or moving sideways or down. Good job, Al. There you go. The centerpiece and key tool for fire lookouts is the blank, blank, blank.
Osborne Firefinder.
Osborne Firefinder. Very good. All right. This device allows you to bounce your radio signal and reach stations you may not be in line of sight of.
Repeater.
Repeater. Excellent. Okay. Someone calls the radio and says, "This is Smith on Suntop." Are they calling you if you were at Suntop?
No.
No.
Nope. They're just using the sun top repeater. Yeah. Okay. When volunteering at Kelly Butte, you should report into Puget Sound at what points? There's 2 of them.
When you start on the trailhead and when you make the lookout.
Yep. When you start on the trailhead, remember I said when you step out of your car is when you basically report in. Okay. And then when you reach the lookout. Okay. And then on the way back down, when should you report again? Kind of the reverse of that. When I'm leaving the lookout and then when I've arrived at the trailhead. Okay. Because that tells Puget Sound that I'm somewhere on that trail between the lookout and the trailhead. Okay. 2 more. What's wrong with this transmission? Smith on lookout repeater calling Puget Sound.
Does not specify what repeater, and the Puget Sound is not in the beginning.
Yeah. I would summarize and say just about everything. Okay. That's a pretty bad transmission, guys. We could do hopefully much better than that. So the 3 C's of good radio communication are blank, blank, and blank. And we don't want to say blankety blank, 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 blank on the radio. Clear, concise, and
Complete.
Complete. Clear, concise, and complete. All right. Excellent job, guys. Okay. So that wraps us up for this season. Any last questions, thoughts, concerns? Hard. Okay. Andrea and or Erica? Can't tell which
Here's
one's
my
which.
question. It's Andrea. Last summer, we may have heard, I mean, I think everyone heard on the news, that Mount Rainier Paradise got absolutely pummeled with a lot of people, and they just a couple. And I thought, God, what if something like that happened when I was up at Kelly Butte or Suntop? Any thoughts about just an unusually huge quantity of people and what you think would be a wise course of action if there's just 1 or 2 people up there to?
If things get too out of control at Suntop, for example, I would shoo everybody down below the gate. I've done that on, if it gets to the point where the traffic is too bad, I've got too many people coming up there to the point where people can't turn around anymore, because that gets to be a problem. That parking lot's small. I will basically say I need everybody to leave, and then I would walk down. If I'm by myself, I'll walk down to the gate, and if I'm not by myself, I would basically get my person, whoever my +1 is, to go down to the gate and staff the gate and let no one back up until I've cleared the parking lot, everybody that's up there. Can't have people having an accident up there in the parking lot because there's too many people. So,
wow. Okay. You've had to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But also, speaking from experience, this is Lisa here. Sarah and I ran the busiest day up there on Labor Day weekend. We're the 242 people day there. That's 8% of the season in a single day. I mean, they come throughout the day. It is the busiest I've ever seen it. But even then, people were pretty cooperative with the traffic, and they didn't all arrive all at once.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Mount Rainier. You just don't get those numbers.
My problem was people were starting to park on the road, and they were starting to park to the point where they were blocking the road that people couldn't get out.
Right.
And that was the issue.
And that's how we handled it. Was we sent one of us down to the road at gate closing time, and the other one of us shooed people out at gate closing time.
Yeah.
Yes, and it worked out good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good question. Other questions?
Can I ask a couple?
You bet.
So one thing you mentioned was about the liquid fuel. And I just wanted to double check, because you also mentioned the propane, the 1 pound propane. Are we expected to cook food outside?
No,
we can't.
You can use that inside the lookout. What we don't want you to use is using white gas. White gas has been the problem, because what happens is people will quite often fuel their white gas stoves inside the lookout, and that's a just incredible fire hazard. So
yes. Okay. And then
same with the kerosene heater. You can use the kerosene heater, but we want you to fill it outside. Kerosene isn't likely to burn. It's not nearly as flammable as gasoline, but we just want people to be much more fire safe. No liquid fueled lanterns.
Okay. I just
candles, stuff like that. Yeah.
And then my last question was actually about mice, because last year, on one of the weekends that I came, it was disgusting. It was absolutely horrible. And I'm wondering, well, one, just kind of to the group, like make sure you let the next person know if you see like droppings and that kind of thing happening, that you like let someone know so that they can expect that coming in and prepare. But also I'm curious if any improvements have been made, if there's any.
You're going to have mice at these lookouts. The key thing is to make it so they're not attracted to come in there by not leaving food out. That's why we've gone to really trying to get people to keep their food in the bucket, keep their garbage in the bucket. You know, if keep food out of there, they won't come in as much. We do have mouse traps. We want the mouse traps out. We try to keep the mouse traps out. We don't try to leave bait around because, you know, there's too many people with dogs and things like that out there. So we don't try to do that. Again, if we keep a good, clean kitchen, we're less likely to have mouse problems. We're still going to have a few. You know, that's just life at the lookout.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't just a few, but yeah, I will always be bringing my tent from now on. But it was all in all great. But yeah, thanks. I just wanted to check in on that.
Other questions? All right. Well, thanks for your time this evening. If I could get Aaron Stein to stick around for just a